Simon, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Conrad. Nice to meet you, Tyler. Let's see. It is the last Ignite for the year. We will it'll kick off again next year.
How many in total are there?
That's a good question. I think there was like 14-ish, something like that. I'm hoping this works.
Have you gotten all the Ignites, Jim? Have you done all the Ignites?
I think I missed like one.
I think you and I started right around the same time.
I think I missed one.
We all started around the same time, probably. In July? Yeah, I was like maybe second week of August.
Okay.
But, yeah.
I like it so far.
It's good. It's a lot different than kind of what I expected, but it's more of what I want. So it's good. Yeah. Yeah. How about yourself?
It's good. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm on the team with Conrad.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Nice.
he's my team lead.
Okay, fine. For this,
I helped my buddy run his company. It's called the Good Couch.
okay.
Yeah, so I would, hey, how you doing? I would do a little bit of sales, some like
I love that jack-o'-lantern thing. I've never heard of that before.
Oh, yeah, right? Yeah. It's
Do you
kinda-
live down there?
What's that?
You live down there?
No, I live up north.
Okay.
Yeah, but a friend had tickets that she was trying to get rid of.
I grew up in the South.
A friend had the tickets. She was
Okay.
selling them.
At least
And just like you, I said,
It looks really cool.
it really is actually. Yeah, if you get a chance to get out there, definitely.
I was like, oh, I need to get out more.
You live down in that area?
No, I actually, I live like super close to live.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on like 47 and 46 is Road. So I'm right near like I-70 and Federal, the Rocky Mountain Lake Park area. Yeah, and she told me they're like, we ran. I'm like, you guys are so close.
T-Rice was like,
You live near them?
No, I live up north of 36 and Pecos.
Oh, so I know, so you're like near Lowhigh.
You know, just north of
access all the tools.
Midtown.
that they want to use the resort.
What?
Midtown. It's a newer community.
36 in Pico?
Yeah.
He brings in a lot of money for the.
Right.
So Midtown is between, I think, like 76 and
Oh,
36.
not 36.
No. Like Highway
He
36.
was like.
Oh, Highway 36.
Yeah.
You know, Erin
From.
from, she has her own team here. She lives up in Midtown. She's always like posting, you guys have that brewery over there.
Yeah. Bruce, yeah.
I've been there a couple of times and I have a friend that lives over in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Actually, I've looked at.
The really cool part about that brewery is that they have food trucks like cycle through there. So, you know, there's definitely
I've
some-
gone there, like my friends and I have gone there and played games. We've got like game night there.
Yeah.
Are you in Midtown or you live like?
No, just north.
My friend lives just north of it.
Oh, okay.
One of those like roads, I don't remember the name of it,
Yeah.
but that's a really, I like that neighborhood. Yeah, it's really cute. I'm trying to find my roommate a house and she would move to that neighborhood in a heartbeat, but we can't find her price point. Too much money.
I know, right? It's definitely crazy out there.
Midtown is totally up in that area, like,
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it, just because of the, you know,
First one ever.
just, it's a typical email, right? Low quality materials. super small, reduced lots, things like that. So I actually live in the neighborhood right above the Twin Lakes. And so we're talking about like 1960, 1950 homes.
I know, and I hope those don't disappear.
No, they're really not.
Those are the homes I like.
Turkey renovation.
Okay,
There's really.
yeah. I'll have to look and see what street my friend lives on. It would be really funny if you're like on their block. Like, okay. They moved there like 2 years ago, right before COVID.
All right. I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. It's a few minutes after 9:30. I appreciate all of you being here and being on time. And I know there's like 8 or so, 9 or so, maybe on the joining us via Zoom. So exciting for them. But yeah. So my name is Conrad Smith. I am an agent here in this office on the ALC. I'm one of the actually one of the owners in the office as well, which is kind of fun. Been with this office since 2007. So I've been here quite a while. I've been in real estate since 2003. Yeah. I learned a lot during that time. I'm actually very grateful for the fact that I got into real estate right around the time that it went from being a time of where it was accidental, what I called accidental real estate agents. They would trip over buyers and clients. Like it was
2008.
Yeah, this is like 2007, 2008, right around there, right when we were at that peak before we hit the, what do we like to call it, Great Recession. And learned a lot cutting my teeth then, and made me a better agent now. And so that's when I got into joined the office was December of 2007 when I joined this office, and then I've been here ever since. Grown my business here, grown my team here, following the Keller Williams models. The reason I continue to stay with Keller Williams is the models. Well, let's put it this way: I still haven't hit the pinnacle of what their models are able to do. So I guess until I do that and I outgrow the Keller Williams, then I might as well stay here and keep growing here. Considering what I've seen some of the top agents in the company do. I don't know if you guys have know who Ben Kenny is. He is a huge top producer, has grown his business into not only having a large team where he started, but then done expansion. There's actually a Ben Kenny team here in Denver. So there's multiple, he has teams across the country. He's actually grown his real estate business from beyond what the MREA book talks about, at least 1.0, talks about, where it's the millionaire real estate agent, right? And the top level in that book is to net $1 million a year, right? He's taken it to the next level, which will be in the MREA 2.0, which is give $1 million. So he makes enough income in his world that he's giving away $1 million every single year.
Wow.
How cool is that? So once I've outgrown that level of business, then maybe I'll go find another place to go and pay my license. Right? Yeah, exactly. So I'm on the team board. We've been on there for quite a while. I run my team with me and my wife. I've been doing this a really long time. I started out being mostly buyer focused. That was more out of default rather than purpose. I think most new agents find it a little easier to work with buyers first off than it is. They find sellers to be a little bit intimidating on the front end, is what I've experienced in my world at least. And so I've loved working with buyers. I've gotten very good at working with buyers and helping them make great decisions, helping consult them. And I really do consider myself more of a real estate consultant than a real estate agent. I think my job is to help advise. I think my job is to give them great information to make amazing decisions for them and their family, whether that's to work with me, work with someone else, buy now, buy later. I don't like the outcome. I'm less concerned about as I am that they are making a great decision for themselves. And when I take that attitude, I tend to get more business than I lose. So, which is a win-win, right? So they're being helped at a high level, and I'm able to help on a high level. So it also hurts less when they don't choose you, because you're like, well, they just made the best decision for them and their family. Or I just didn't do a good enough job presenting my value proposition. But either way, it's easier to take. So today we're really going to look closely at how to conduct a buyer consultation. So the goal behind today's session, and it's out of order because of just where things have landed. I think this was originally scheduled on the same day as one of the mega camp sessions. So then it got bumped, and then it was on the same day as the fall mastermind session. So both of which I was attending, and so it was hard to teach and attend. So this got put at the very end. So this is a little out of order because you guys have probably already done showing with buyers, and you've probably already done a lot of the prospecting. This should go somewhere in between those two on getting that consultation and doing that consultation. But the first thing that you should really well, actually, I like this question in here. They are asking, who would like to share what they're grateful so far and that they've learned in this journey that they've learned through Ignite. Since this is our last session, I'd love to hear from a few people. Like, what have you learned? What are you grateful so far that you've learned, and what have you gained out of the Ignite series so far?
I'd say it's the attitude of embracing rejection. Like if someone is not very receptive and doesn't want to talk to you when you're cold calling, and you just say, great, glad I got that out of the way, and then looking at it as a numbers game, just moving on to the next calls.
Yeah.
And not being down on yourself about rejection or offended by it.
Yeah, yeah. One of the biggest things I've learned in sales is that, have any of you ever had a bad day? Right? A bad day, just not in a good mood, whatever it is. Someone can say the nicest thing to you and you probably bite their head off, right? If you're talking to enough people on a regular basis, do you think you're ever going to find someone that's just having a bad day? Most people, I know there's probably an exception out there, but I believe that most people are doing the very best they can with what they have in front of them, with what they have, the tools and resources they have. They're not out to be mean. I think most people are genuinely trying to be reasonable people, nice people, and they have circumstances or things around them, experiences that drive them to respond or act in a way that maybe we take the wrong way, right? And or maybe just flat out is rude. But you know what? Everyone has their bad days. So if I happen to call enough people and I talk to some and I find people that are having a bad day, I can call them and talk to them on another day, and I might get a much different reception. It's also one of the reasons why I, when I'm calling through lists, when I'm calling cold calling or Facebook leads or door knocking or any of those type of things, unless I really got like a gun in my face type of thing. Have any of you ever door knocked on a door and gotten a gun in your face? No. Yeah, okay. I actually have, but not while doing real estate. Was that
not a physical gun, but like, are you saying like theoretically if they're like?
Oh no, I put a physical gun in my face.
No.
Oh yeah, but not in real estate. I was doing something else up in New England, selling books door to door. I did a sales job that way a long time ago. Anyway, it's not in real estate. I've never gotten a gun in my face here, but that's a person I wouldn't go back to, right? And most people are gonna catch them on a different day, call them again a different day, you talk to them on a different day, and to be honest, they probably don't even remember you from the previous time. Their reaction to you was a bigger impact on you than it was on them. They responded, and then they hung up and they moved on with the day and they completely forgot with you. Sorry, you're not that important, right? And until you do get to the point where you start interacting and making impact on their life, but your simple call and their rejection of you was not some big impact on their life. They moved on. They probably hurt and physically affected you more than it did them. So by calling them a different day, you actually are going to catch them in a different mood, a different attitude. You can actually move that relationship forward. What else are you grateful for learning? What opportunities are you seeing? Are you excited about that are coming from what you've learned through Ignite?
I somewhat identify with what you were talking about, essentially coming in on the plan that you did, right? So I got my license in May. And as you may know, this summer has been just crazy on the buyers end. And essentially that's the role I stepped into, right?
Right.
And so I'm grateful though that the leads have come into such a hostile environment for buyers agents, because I feel like, once again, if I'm able to make it through this, what could the market really, throw at me in the future that I could do?
Right.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. Becoming a great buyer's agent right now in a very, very competitive world right now, to be a buyer's agent is extremely, you're going to learn a lot from that. It was funny the other day, actually, there's a few, not very many, but there's a few like opportunities out there for buyers where there's some homes that are actually sitting. It's crazy. Most homes are selling fast, right? But there are a few that are actually sitting. And so suddenly I find myself falling back on some of my old skills that I needed when we were talking to someone about that actually has that homes was sitting there, and you can actually negotiate below the list price. That wasn't a starting base price to start bidding up from. It was actually something that you could, get it for less than. Crazy, And so, yeah, I find you're going to pick up these different skills from the different environments. And trust me, the market will shift. We'll have mini shifts throughout the year. We're going to have a big shift at some point. I don't think it's going to go to a buyer's market anytime soon. If any of you have buyers that are saying that, it's time to learn the scripts to help educate them, because it's not anytime soon. Not anytime soon. It will happen. But I don't even think it'll be that crazy. I think it'll be more flat. And even then, so then to call that a buyer's market, relatively speaking, maybe. Cool. So the focus today is on the buyer consultation and to get a signed representation agreement, or sometimes called buyer agency agreement or buyer listing contract signed, whatever you want to call that. Why? What's important about getting a signed buyer representation agreement before you actually go out and work with buyers? Yeah, it's a huge protection of time, right? I mean, without that that signed agreement, you'd be spending a significant amount of time working with buyers who ultimately end up using a different agent to purchase the home. I've definitely gotten calls from buyers who just wanted to pop in to see some properties, right? And being the young, eager agent I was, I jumped out and showed them these properties, and thinking, yeah, I'll get that. I'll deal with the paperwork when we put in the offer, right? And lo and behold, I find out that they went out and they didn't want to bother their brother-in-law or whoever that they knew that was an agent. They didn't want to bother them. And so when they found the property they liked, they went right to their friend, their brother-in-law, their family member, and they said, and they had them write up the offer, and then they got that commission for the properties that I showed. Right? Now, whose fault was that? 100% my fault, right? Lesson that I very much learned very quickly after that scenario, that it was like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm not going out with buyers unless I have something signed. And yeah, and the other lesson I learned, big lesson I learned, was with the next set of that would go with the next session, which is actually showing homes, right? And I showed one lady over 97 homes, right around there, almost 100 homes. She never bought. That was fun, big waste of time. What's that? Oh, I learned a ton about the market. I see a lot of different homes. That's probably wasn't the best use of my time. Even I was a younger agent. I soon learned how to spot different things. Like, okay, so how do I show fewer homes and help them make decisions? How do I help buyers actually make decisions while we're showing homes? How do I help lead them to the right home? How do I make sure I'm doing my consultation right, so that I know that know what their top needs are, right? What their non-negotiables are. What are the things that they are really looking for? To be honest, I never had a buyer consultation with this lady. Like, I never sat down and had a real consultation with this lady. And so I never learned all this. I kind of just was out showing homes. And that really wasn't didn't quite do it, right? Let's move forward on the slides part. So what do successful agents do every day? They grow their business and they run their business. And growing the business, they lead generate for buyers and sellers. They make listing presentations and get listings. They make buyer presentations and get listings, buyer listings. They preview real estate. All right. So the first step that we're going to be doing is talking about, okay, well, what do you have to, in order to get a buyer representation, you have to buy a buyer consultation. In order to have a buyer consultation, what do you have to do? You have to set an appointment, lead gen and talk to people and set an appointment, right? So the goal, we're on page 5, those that are kind of following along on there, on the participant guide, but the goals of a buyer consultation appointment. What are the main goals, would you say, or maybe they're written in there? Yep, identify wants and needs, discover what their real value is, what's driving them to buy a home. What else?
Get a contract.
Get a signed contract with them.
Education and about the market and showing value.
Yeah. Delivering your value proposition, setting expectations, how you're going to work with them to find their dream home, and to educate, help them understand what this process is and how you work in that process too. Because it's not just about saying, well, you go show homes, you're gonna see some homes and then we're gonna put in an offer and then we're gonna close on it. I mean, that's not, yeah, they get that, right? And so part of it's about what they call future pacing. You're telling them, here's what you can expect to happen. And you're setting expectations both for themselves, for you and themselves. So what do you need to do to prepare for a meeting that will accomplish these 3 goals?
Build trust.
Yeah. What else?
I always, before I meet with them, I make sure to ask them questions. How's your credit? How much do you make a year gross commission? Is there anyone that would be able to co-sign for you? And if you could handpick a date of when you want to be booked to consult, would that be good?
Yeah. I love that last one too. So you're pre-qualifying the buyer, right? You're saying, okay, before I spend my time sitting down with you, Mr. Buyer, and you're not going to say it in such a way that's just like, oh, my time's just like that valuable, though kind of. I mean, if you want to be paid a specialist doctor's salary, you kind of have to act like one in some ways. So they're gonna, why do I like to have buyers meet me here at my office? Well, where do you go to meet with an attorney? Where do you go to meet with a doctor? You meet at their place, and you come to them. Well, if you want to be treated like a professional, do you go meet at the coffee house or you come meet here at the office, right? Now, there's exceptions. And the ideal, I would say, is you're having them come meet you here at the office in a professional environment where you have established and set up the guidelines where you're meeting them at, and you're kind of controlling the situation there. And if there's anyone on the Zoom that has a question or something like that, unmute yourself and scream out. I don't see a lot of if you put something in the chat, I probably won't see it. I apologize. It's hard to manage. But you do too? Okay, cool. So we got some assistants here in the audience as well. That's awesome. Thanks, guys. So one of the things, what you want to do is use, you want to have like a buyer lead sheet. You want to have some sort of intake form for buyers that you can use to help prepare yourselves, to ask questions about, how's your, have you looked, do you know what your credit score is? Like, do you have good credit or not? Do you need to know exactly what their credit score is? No, because probably even what they know their credit score is wrong. Usually it's high, in most cases, depending on where they pull it from. But and I don't mean it's high necessarily. I mean, it's high compared to what the lender will pull. The lender, I don't know how much you all know about credit, but what a lender pulls for credit scores and what like the credit card pulls, or what you pull for getting a car, or things, or what you pull from like a consumer website like Credit Karma, they're all different. They calculate the number differently. They put different weights on different things. And so because they weigh things differently in your credit history, the numbers are going to turn out different. And most of the time, whatever they're pulling from like Credit Karma or from their your free credit score checking on your bank app or whatever, most of the time those are 20 points to 40 points high in most cases. So if they're on the cusp, what they're telling you, then they're probably a little under the cusp. That doesn't mean I wouldn't have them go talk to a lender. It just means that it's something to keep in mind. Yeah, asking what income is, asking what I love the idea. What would be your ideal movement date? Because then you can back off from that and decide what's going to be happening. What do you want to do? If they're in a lease, when does your lease expire? The ideal time to start, the perfect time to start searching for a buyer that's in a lease is about 100 days before their lease expires. That's the start of the search, like getting out into homes. What do you have to do before that? Well, you need to get pre-approved, right? You need to have the buyer consultation. You need to figure out what their wants and needs are. Now, depending on their situation, they might need a couple of weeks or a few weeks to get fully pre-approved, because they might need to work on a couple things or pay off a debt. If they have to pay off a debt, then they might need a month or two. So when's the best time to start this buyer consultation?
100 days or 120 days?
It's as soon as possible. I mean, it really is. If they're a year out, let's have a consultation. Let's chat about what it looks like, so then we can be on the same page, so we can set a path forward. Now, you might talk to them and they're like, yeah, I've got like an 800 credit score. I'm a W-2 employee. I make $100,000 a year. And then maybe you don't need to start necessarily a full year out, right? They're not going to have any of that work to do. They're going to be just ready to rock and roll. Probably they could probably be a week before they want to go out and look at homes. As long as they get stuff into the lender right away, they can be pre-approved in a week and be out looking at homes by Saturday, right?
I have a client that went and spoke with a lender and found out they need to like clean up a couple of things before
Sure.
they're in a better position. Would you still have them sign a exclusive right to buy contract, even though they're like a year out before they can start the process again?
A year out, it might not be necessary at a year out, because they would probably go back into my nurture group where I'm nurturing them, staying in contact, building relationship, and cultivate, I guess is what they call it in here, and ignite so they would be in that world, and I would probably pop them back in there. However, if it was just they have like a little thing to take care of, but it's going to take a couple of months to deal with that, then absolutely. If you're talking like, hey, no, they're not going to be able to do anything for a full year, I might set some levels of, hey, I'm your agent, I'm your guy. One of the scripts I love to use is being their family realtor. And the way the script basically goes is I'm like, I've seen that, I've noticed that a lot of people, they'll have like a family attorney or a family doctor, someone they go to when they have like a medical question or they have a legal question or something like that. They have those people in their world, but a lot of people just, I've noticed, just don't really have much for a family realtor. I mean, do you have a family realtor yet?
My mom, I guess.
Oh, well, your mom. Okay, well, I'm not working with you anyway. Do you have a family realtor yet? Yeah. Right. And so the question then becomes, well, oh no, you don't have anyone that's your family realtor? Cool. Well, I'd love it if I could be that person for you. And all that means is if you ever like need like a contractor, like so like a great electrician or a great roofer or something like that, or you have questions about the real estate market, or you know someone that's talking about buying or selling homes, you just reach out to me, right? And then what I'll do for you is I'll just I'll be able to provide those services for you, and I'll be able to be here for you. And the best part about it is that it's no cost to you, right? It's free. In fact, the only thing I really I'm a big believer in the power of a handshake. The only thing I really do is I love just to shake on it and say, hey, I'm going to be your family realtor. I'll be here for you. Does that sound good? Right.
That's great. Yeah.
That's a commitment script of saying, hey, I'm going to be there for you. You can be there for me. The only thing I ask in return is that if you hear of someone that's looking to buy a home, sell a home, invest in real estate, that you would just call me. And then I'll make sure you have access to all my certified vendors. I'll get you free pies. I'll do all sorts of things for you, just by being part of by earning the right to be your family realtor. That's fair. Sweet. There's no cost. That's awesome, right? So that's getting those kind of commitments from people. It's a light level, but and then again, the other thing I do a lot of buyer class stuff. So if there's someone that needs educated, I may not sit down and do the buyer consultation, but but they might want to learn about the buying process, again, added value. Then I teach buyer classes, and those buyer classes are not one-on-one. It's 10-on-1, right? It's multiple people coming in. It's over Zoom and in person. It's things like that. That gives that, again, adds value. Often bring a lender in to help me with this so they can talk more about pre-qual versus pre-approval, things like that. So the next step, though, you've cultivated a lead, and now what's an A buyer? What's a top level buyer? What are we looking for when we're looking for really a true buyer, I should say? What would be a true buyer?
Motivated, pre-approval within the range they're wanting also, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's another important part about talking with your lender and your buyers, essentially identify where they are, where they want to be, and what it's going to take to get there. And then that helps establish a timeline as well.
Yeah.
As far as how fast we're going to move or how, essentially play to their motivations.
Right, exactly. I mean, someone who's able to buy, right? They can actually afford to buy what they're ready. They're ready to buy something, and they're willing to purchase. They're willing to. Ready, able, and willing. Or able, ready, and willing, right? That is a buyer. If they're not those three things, they're not a buyer. They're a cultivator, they're a lead, they're something else, because if they're not able to, it doesn't matter, right? Let's help them get able, but if they're not able to, it doesn't matter. They have to be ready to, they have to be in a position to, and they have to be willing to purchase, or wanting to, right? The desire to. In your toolkit, there is a buyer lead sheet in there. So I don't know if you guys have downloaded the Ignite toolkit. I have it on here. I wonder if here it is. Ignite toolkit. Probably can't see that up there. Let's see the buyer. I'll share. It pulls up. Checklist to write an offer, checklist to prepare an offer, checklist for reviewing offer, buyer lead sheet. So if you haven't downloaded the Ignite toolkit, if you go to KWU, because I don't know where else to say for sure you can find it, go to KW, so mykw.kw.com or whatever, you got the KW stuff. Go to KWU and KW Connect, and then click on the Ignite, and all of this session is Ignite 2.0, the Labs edition. It's more of a Ignite Elements or something along those lines. And then I'll show you this lead sheet here, which is pretty, if I can find out how to present that screen.
Maybe you can drag it over. If you're doing the extended display.
I don't know if that's what it is, or if it's, I can share it with them. I'm not sure. Oh yeah, it does share on there. Look at that. Oh, sweet.
Where you get the Ignite Toolkit.
So we go to, so it's under KWU, so if you go log into KW Connect, and then at the top, there's like training or something along those lines. And then that drop down, there's a KWU for Keller Williams University. When you click in there, they should have the classes. The class you're looking for, of course, is Ignite. And I don't remember if they're separated, but I think it might be Ignite 2.0 that you're clicking on. Okay, and then in there, there's some tabs, and I think there's documentation or something like that. The second tab over, materials, thank you. Materials, and under materials, that has a bunch of different things, and there should be a toolkit zip toolkit or something toolkit that's it's a zip file, a compressed file, Ignite toolkit, something like that. You see that in there? I think it's the bottom on your left side, the Ignite toolkit.
Is the latest one 4.1 or is there a newer one?
I'm not about that. Yeah, it should be called Ignite toolkit.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, and then pop that open. It's a zip file and it has a bunch of files in it. This buyer lead sheet. So this buyer lead sheet, and I have one that I've made my own of, but it's kind of fun. Why would we ask that first question? Has an agent taken you out and shown you any properties?
To find out if they have existing buyer agencies.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that a better way of saying it than do you already have an agent? Especially if you're just like, depending on the relationship level, right? But you could be like, yeah, has an agent ever taken you out recently to show you any properties? They're like, no. Awesome. They don't have an agent, right? I mean, it's not 100%, but you could also be like, awesome. But they'll bring it up, right? They're like, no, I met with an agent the other day though. Oh, very cool. Did you guys sit down and just kind of talk about the buying process? Or what'd you do? Oh yeah, we time to talk about some stuff, got some paperwork signed. Oh, you know. Or if they say yes, how's it going with them? Awesome. Did you sign any paperwork with them? I don't want to step on any toes. So, and there's, there's enough business out there for everyone. So definitely don't want to step on anyone's toes. I mean, did you sign anything with them? I don't really like them. They're too pushy. They'll say something. Anyone else buying with you? That's huge. Who'll be living there? How long have you been looking? Why are you moving? Rent your own. Leases up. I had this happen recently. They had already listed their home with another agent here in Denver, actually in an area that I'm an expert in, which, whatever. And apparently they didn't like the agent. So they came to me to buy the home, even though they were selling the home with another agent. A fairly good agent. Well, it's a team, a fairly good team. But it was kind of interesting. I love this question. Are you going to be paying cash, or will you be getting a mortgage for part of to finance part of the purchase of the home?
Conrad, you know what I started doing? I have a Google form sheet and I put all the questions in there, so it just keeps it organized.
Yep. Yeah, I'm weird. I'm kind of I like paper still. Even though I was a tech coordinator for this office for like 6 years, and I'm fairly tech savvy, but there's something about physical paper that I do like. I'm having to transition some away from it because as I grow my team, technology allows us to be organized, communicate better, share information better than being reliant on a physical file. And yeah, I agree. Like a Google Doc is a very Google Forms. So use this when you need to be in your new home.
That's a PDF, right?
Yeah, this one right here. This is a PDF. Yeah, they change it out to a Google sheet. You could, Google form. You can do it yourself, or you could go to Fiverr or something like that. Just tell someone else to do it for you. You'd probably do this for literally $5 in that case, maybe 10. but Fiverr is a great tool to leverage if you're just either don't know how to do something or it just would take you 50 times longer and you have better things to do, like go prospect, lead generate. So great form. This is another one in there, by the way. This is the script book, Ignite script book. So that's in that same toolkit there. If you guys haven't downloaded and started using this already, you need to. There are awesome scripts in here that you guys can use, know what to say, how to say it. In fact, speaking of that, the next script that we need to do is we need to get a consultation appointment. So they've got 2 in here. Like this buyer referral one, willing to talk to you. So I'd like to invite you to come into my office so we can discuss what you're looking for in your next home and use my multiple listing service. By the way, one thing I don't like about this script right here is, does everyone know what an MLS is? Does the public all know what an MLS is? Not necessarily, right? So you never want to make the public feel stupid. The wrong attitude towards dealing with when talking to the public is trying to make yourself sound smart by making them feel stupid, right? You don't want to do that. So be very conscientious about the words that you use. There are words that we use in the industry that are easy, that we roll off. Everyone knows what it means, but then the public doesn't necessarily know what those things are. FSBO is, right? I mean, I was like, half of you might not still know. I don't know. Yeah, like for sale by owner, it's a house that's for sale by an owner, as opposed to going through a real estate agent. Well, MLS is one of those words. Multiple listing service is make sure you're saying, hey, this is, we have, and actually I even sometimes dumb these things down. We can use my multiple listing service to review properties. In fact, what I'll be able to do if you come in, I can give you exclusive access to a real estate portal that allows you to see the same properties that agents see. And this, you can only get access. You're getting a consumer side access that gives you the ability to see these properties. And the way that we do this is you can't get this access unless you're working with a real estate agent like me. And this is access to the same place that realtors put all the listings in. So this isn't like Zillow, that's wrong a lot, like some of those other sites that sometimes don't have the right information. This is direct access to the place where realtors enter in all the properties that are listed for sale. So you can get access to your own portal to that, but you can only get that through like an agent like me. You can't just go out searching and get that same access. And what is that? Well, that's the MLS setting up on an auto email system search, and they can click on that and they open up their portal, and it's for them. It has their name on it, has your branding on the top. They can heart things, they can light bulb things, they can trash things. You can see that all inside of Matrix, and it gives you that interaction with them. They can comment and ask questions on a property. You can comment and reply to their questions on the property. It's a great interactive tool.
I didn't see that there.
What's that?
The comments.
It should show up in your dashboard on the Matrix.
Oh, it took me forever.
Yeah, it should, when they comment, it will show up in the client activity box that's should be on there.
There's not the app. It's like, or I couldn't find it on the app. I had to find it
That could be.
on the app on the laptop.
Yeah, and to be honest, I've not used the mobile, if they have an app, I've used the Matrix app personally, so that could be. I
I
use it on the desktop.
I sent the app to someone and they're like, oh, I've been writing you comments. And I'm like, well, where are they? And literally I spent like an hour looking for them because I have no idea where they went.
Yeah.
There's a question. Zillow does not show everything from MLS.
So they do typically show everything, but here's the thing. They also like to show things that have already gone under contract is active, and things that have already sold is active. Why do you think they might do that? Why do you think Zillow might still show things that are,
You'll reach out.
what's that?
You'll reach out to them.
Yeah. Client, like, if Zillow's the only place you see that property, then what are they gonna, what's someone gonna do? They're going to call the number on there because they can't find anyone else that has that property. So they're gonna call and find out what's the deal. Like, well, they have a property no one else does. Well, why do they have a property that no one else does? Yeah, because it closed 6 months ago. Like, that's why no one else is showing it. But they don't care because what's Zillow's business model, at least so right now? Yeah, selling leads to agents. That's how they make money. If every agent refused to buy another lead from Zillow, Zillow would go bankrupt immediately. But what do? We feed the beast. We buy leads from Zillow because, well, it does sometimes work. It does work for some agents that work right. And so they're like, oh, this is a great resource. Well, yeah, but they're also feeding the beast that's going to actually, well, I don't think it'll destroy the real estate industry, but sure is trying to take a big cut out of us. So, yeah. So what are we doing? So we're giving them value, right? We're offering them value to come and meet with us. What's the value of coming to meet with me at the office? Well, I can educate you on the buying process so you understand exactly what to expect. I can help you understand what's going on in the real estate market, and I can give you exclusive access to properties, to a portal that is a direct interaction with the place where agents actually list homes. In fact, it's the first place. If you want to know the very first place to see properties when they hit the market, like if you want to be the first to see it, it's through the portal. It shows up in that portal before it shows up anywhere else, 100% of the time. Why? Because that's where agents are entering it, right? It doesn't have to syndicate out. Might it be a few minutes later somewhere else? Sure, but I'm not going to emphasize that part to them. I'm going to emphasize the fact that this is the first place, the very first place. You can't get faster anywhere else. Impossible. Because the moment the agent hits select, it shows up in their portal. Or select, submit. The moment an agent hits submit, that listing live, it goes active, it shows up in their portal instantly. All right, so they should use mine. When we meet at my office, we can work together to make the most of your time. I can use the tools I have to find the best matches for you and check for any contingencies and other details that would not be apparent from a property visitor flow. And then, so you're just giving them value. Why should they come meet with you? Then you're closing for the appointment, right? What's the best way to close for an appointment? They do it here. Give them two options, both of which you don't care which one they choose, right? Does Monday or Tuesday work better for you? Does Monday afternoon work for you, or is Tuesday evening better? You give them two options to choose from. They choose between the two options, whatever they are. And if neither of the options work, they'll tell you. It's called an assumptive close. It's presenting two options that you don't care which one they choose. They're both good for you because they are the appointment, right? They're gonna be like, well, actually Tuesday evening I've got something going on, but evenings do work better. Oh, awesome. Okay, so you're busy Tuesday. Let's see. I can do, looking at my calendar, I actually have like a late Friday, if that works for you, or maybe Saturday morning would be better. Okay, Saturday morning. Okay, cool. What's the other? Now, if I have someone talking and live, I'm going to try to set the appointment right then and there. I also love using programs like Calendly. I don't know if you've heard of Calendly. It's a calendar app, and you connect it to like your Google Calendar or your iPhone calendar, whatever you call it, and it'll look at your schedule, and it will just show open time slots on there for them, and they can just pick a time slot that you're open. And you can set like, nothing before 8 a.m., nothing after 7 p.m. on these days. I don't work Sundays, so none of there. And if you put like a dinner date on a Friday night in there, then that time's gonna be blocked off, right? Or I'm starting my dinner date at 5, I have to get ready for it. It's blocked off. They don't have that option anymore. It's really cool. They don't see your calendar, they just see the open slots. Really cool tool. I use it a lot for setting up appointments. In fact, I have an appointment after this meeting, with a referral agent who I just gave them my thing. It's a 20-minute slot for a quick phone call. So and they just scheduled it in there. It's all confirmed on my calendar, just pops up. Really great tool for helping
You
set.
can have that, like, you can add that to your smart plans and just add that link.
Yep. Yeah,
So if
absolutely.
they want to set it up, they can just like.
I know a lot of people, and to be honest, I should do this, in their email signature, found a little cool calendar icon and just set an appointment with me. Want to chat, set appointment, or click here to set appointment. And it just opens, it's just a link, opens up to Calendly, they schedule appointment, shows up in your calendar. What a great way to set appointments, right?
Yeah, I used to have that in the management property where we'll send those
Those links.
emails, and then if they want to schedule an appointment, we'll do it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's free for the basic stuff. If you pay extra, there's extra things it will do, like send out text and email reminders for the appointment, do a follow-up email after the appointment's happened. They can click to reschedule. Some of that stuff's free, some of that stuff costs. You can make different types of calendars. So some are like for like an hour appointment versus a 20-minute phone consultation, right? So different things like that. So the goal is to set the appointment, right? All right, let's go back into, let's see this. Back to the presentation. Cool. Kind of role model that. We were talking about what's in that script book. So when you're going to set the appointment, it's just give them a reason why, like give them value of showing up. If you don't give them any value, they're gonna be like, why? Right? Also a little bit of just being the assumptive of, well, this is the next step. Oh, you want to go see this property? This is the next step. You come in, we have a quick appointment. One of the things, everyone can run, we're independent contractors, right? So we can all run our business how we want to. Best practice is always have an appointment, have it here at the office. That's best practice. One of the things that I'll do sometimes is, let's say they have 3 or 4 properties they want to go see. You've cultivated a relationship, you've talked to them, you know they're pre-qualified to a point, because I mean, you guys should talk to a lender about how to pre-qualify someone. They'll teach you how to do like a basic pre-qualification. This is not a pre-approval, but a pre-qualification, basically by asking some good questions and running through a few numbers. If you've done all that, then sometimes what I'll do is I will say, great, we're going to go see these 4 properties. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and meet at the Starbucks that's right next to where those properties are. And we're going to meet, let's just meet there, and then we'll take off from there to go look at the properties. What am I going to do at that Starbucks? I'm going to buy him coffee, yeah. I'm going to do my buyer consultation. I'm going to do the rest of it. I'm going to get signed documents. I'm going to go ahead and, because if I haven't done that, and getting them to, I'll do that here if we're seeing properties close to here, but I'm not going to make them drive, let's say they live in Lafayette, I'm not going to make them drive here to go back out to look at properties at Lafayette, like, right, I might not do that. And it depends, you have to decide what is it, depends on on where that relationship is. Best practice, have a first buyer consultation here, and then set an appointment for when you're going to start showing homes once they are pre-approved, right? So there might be exceptions here and there, but my first meeting, I'm always, even if I'm going to show them properties, my first meeting, I'm going to, okay, great, let's go meet at this. If a property's vacant, maybe I will meet at the property. Now, I caution you, make sure someone knows where you're at. I mean, this is speaking a lot to the gals in the room, but also guys, let's be honest. You want to be safe. If you don't know this person, please meet here first. Like, meet somewhere public first. Start and make sure you get a good feeling from them. Be safe out there, and part of that having that, and that actually can be a safety thing. If they are questioning, well, why do we have to meet at your office? You can easily pull back on that, because if you're getting this kind of vibe, you just be like, you know what, it's actually an office policy that we need to meet at our office first. It's so I can get things like a copy of your driver's license, things like that, that we need in our processing, and before I actually get out and look at a property. Okay.
I know you're a guy, right? But let's say you may not have done it, but is it like if you're showing someone home, and let's say like me, and it's like a guy, would it be like awkward for me to like ask her to tag along with me?
I don't think it's awkward at all.
Okay.
Things that I do, like, so it's in my calendar. Whenever I go show homes, it's in my calendar where I'm showing homes at. Always my first place that I'm showing the home at, who am I meeting with, that's in my calendar. I want the police to be able to know exactly where I was supposed to be and where to find me if I go missing, right? And who I'm meeting with and all that information. But I'm also sharing that with my wife, or my significant other, before she was my wife. And I'm making sure people know where I'm at and going, especially when I'm meeting with someone that's a stranger to me. I don't know them well. They're not a friend yet. That's huge. And especially if I haven't met with them before, like, you get a good vibe on the people when you meet with them, one way or another, right? I mean, we all have those kind of spider senses or whatever that tingle and going like, nope, not this one. Or I better bring someone with me this whole time. No commission checkers. So.
I ever tried it while you're showing time has like a safety clock.
Yeah, I haven't used it either. But I've seen that. Agreed. That you have to renew after so long, like you go into someone and that'll trigger something. I know a lot of phones, I used to have it set up on one of my phones until I kept accidentally setting it off. And so I stopped. But it's a safety thing where if I hit the power button so many times, it'll literally like text your emergency contact. You can even set it to go to like 911 or something like that. But my problem with it was it wasn't enough times or something like that. I'd literally be like, I'd accidentally hit it, my phone would turn off instead of on. I thought I was turning it on, and I hit it again and again. And the next thing I know, I've texted my wife, help, I'm emergency, here's my GPS location. Like, it automatically sends that. I was like, oh shoot. So I kind of turned that off. Cool feature. I'm not sure if I think there's other apps out there that can do that as
So
well.
I've heard something about like calling someone in the office, saying something about
The red folder, yeah. A lot of people know about the red folder. It's a standard that we've been, that is actually being reinstituted. But basically, if you can call into the office, be like, hey, can you give me the red folder on 123 Main Street? And that being the address of where you're at, that generally means, hey, I'm in trouble. This is the address I'm at. I need you to do something. I need help, without necessarily alerting the person you're with. I didn't point at you. Alerting the person you're with, whoever they be, right? He's the one that's gonna come save you, right? It's like, I'm there. And in order to make sure that saying that, without alerting them that you're calling for help, to give you maybe a better chance of, because maybe they're still biding their time, but you're really nervous about what's going on. It's like, hey, I need you to send help. And they'll probably they can be frank with you on the other end, because the other person can't hear them, right? So they're gonna be like, are you in trouble? You need some help? Yes. You can just answer that. Do you need us to call the police? No. But yeah, could you give me more information on that? All right, what does that mean? Okay, so maybe send someone there? Yeah, that'll help. I don't know. I mean, I need to come in. Yeah, I need to get you in. Have that conversation. You can do it encrypted and not really, but be safe. Tell people where you're at. Don't go places alone without someone knowing. Bring someone with you. I think that's totally legit, not weird. You can just introduce them. This is my showing partner. They don't know.
I even heard someone say, like, if you have a property with a basement, you can just stand by the door and be like, well, there's the basement.
Yeah, like you don't have to go into certain spaces, right? I'm actually, I always lock doors when I get inside the house, but that's because I trust the person I'm with at that point. I don't want someone sneaking in behind me. So every time I walk into a house, every once in a while agents get mad because I have the key with me as well, and I lock the door so they can't get in. it also helps me control the situation too, because back in the day, pre-COVID, when they would actually, like, multiple agents would be showing the same house at the exact same time. Now it's pretty standard that usually everyone is one party at a time. But even there's times when the house is popular enough that even that sometimes goes by the wayside. But when I show a house, when we get inside, I usually lock the door right behind me. It's just a habit I've created. And again, it's because I don't want to be like upstairs in the master bedroom with the client and then some weirdo comes into the house. And trust me, I've had that happen. And usually a second neighbor that's just curious, but it's always super awkward. Be like, do you have an agent with you? Are you an agent? They're like, oh no, I just saw the door open and I just walked in. Yeah. Okay. I can set up an appointment with you to show you this house right now. I've got other properties to see with my clients right here. What's your information? And they're, oh no, I'm good. I'll just, okay. Weird. You are liable for what happens, somewhat liable for what happens inside that house while you're in it, because you are the licensed agent. So that's part of it too. All right. So next thing is just create your presentation. You guys have all been in designs, right? So in Command, they provide you 2 templates for the buyer presentation that are fully customizable to match the value proposition and the buyers that you're meeting with. So it's a tool to guide the conversation and provide clients with tangible demonstration of your expertise as a real estate agent. So we're going to go through a little bit of that buyer presentation. There's additional resources that for help with Command and design specific to our market center. I don't know what all those resources are, to be honest, but they exist. The first thing, so we're looking at the table of contents. Each section of the buyer presentation is going to help you connect with the buyer and build confidence in your value proposition. So you can make changes to this presentation, including adding or deleting or reordering the sections, changing the verbiage. If you don't like it, you can change the photos. What are some resources that you can use to help customize this buyer presentation specific to your client? Any ideas?
Can you be more specific?
So if we were going to customize your buyer presentation specific to the person you're going to be meeting with, what are some resources you might be using to get what you need to make it more customized to them? MLS, right?
Market specific trends like, selling percentage or bump percentage, how high or low the houses are selling for listing.
Yeah, exactly. It's maybe specific to neighborhoods that they might be thinking about that you've already learned from them. You can be looking at that buyer lead sheet that you asked a lot of questions on, and maybe you might take out certain things because you're just like, that's not going to be pertinent to them because they said that, I don't know, maybe they say that they're a renter, so you want to talk about maybe benefits of owning versus renting in there, or they're talking about that they have a large family, and so you want to talk, maybe you'll have more family stuff oriented in there, things along those lines. There's a modern template, and then there's also a traditional template in designs. In the modern template looks the best personally, but it's up to you. So we're going to look at some of the sections in this. So this first section in the presentation sets a tone for your relationship with them. So it opens by asking buyers to explain their dream home buying experience. So they're saying, what's the one thing that has to happen to make that dream scenario a reality when it comes to the dream scenario of buying their home? Now, I have clients where they're buying their first home. So their dream home is anything that has a roof over their heads and hopefully a toilet. I also warn my clients, and I'll warn you now too, that my humor is extremely dry, so I do appreciate the laughs. Yeah, I've only had a couple of people that there actually are homes out there that don't have toilets in them. Did you know that? Yeah, have you ever searched the MLS for 0 toilets? Like 0 bathrooms, they exist. Some of them are not just parking spaces too, because that's what most of them will be. The other good thing about looking for properties with 0 bathrooms, every once in a while you find a property that actually has bathrooms. Do you think there might be an opportunity there for a buyer? Yeah, because it's being marketed incorrectly by a less than great agent. Anyways, so in page 6 on the present participant guide, you can see the pages from, you can see this page from the buyer presentation. What is the objective for this page in the buyer guide?
Dig deeper into their motivation.
Yeah. What's important to them about it, right? Why are they buying? What's helpful about knowing their motivations when you're working with a buyer?
It helps give like a point to fall back on. Cause like looking for a house can be discouraging. Like you might not get the house you want, or you might not find it right away. But remembering why you're doing it gives you like that point of why you're doing it.
Yeah. It gives you it gives you a if you know their motivations, then you can help remind them of that, like you said, when you need to fall back on that. So if I know, for instance, I have some buyers right now that were Simon, who was here earlier, left to go show them some properties, and I know what their motivations are. They want to be closer to the kids' schools, because right now they're about a 30 to 45-minute drive away from the kids' schools, where they want the kids to be going to school, where they have been. They want a backyard because they currently don't have a backyard, and they want something that doesn't have that's a detached property. Because right now they're in a townhome that has like a $320 HOA. They're tired of paying that big HOA. They don't mind paying something small if they're in the right community. But those are the 3 driving factors. Why is that important for them? Because they want to actually be able to have their kids go out to the backyard and play, instead of having everyone leave the house to go to a park or something like that. They want to be able to do that as a family and have that space for it. They want to spend more time together as a family instead of driving in the car to go back and forth to school every single day. So, and of course, the HOA thing is mainly because it makes the property they're going to buy more affordable, because they're not paying $300 a month towards an HOA. They can do some of their own maintenance and things like that, right? So these are their driving factors. So when we're looking at properties, in fact, we found one the other day that it isn't perfect, no. But does it hit their 3 primary factors? Yes. And so we're talking about that as being like, hey, this checks the big checks off your box. So we either need to consider this property, or we need to see if, because this is the best one we found in your price range that you've structured out, or maybe we need to talk to the lender and see if you can afford more. Which is more important? Because this is literally the best that's available, right? Like we've seen everything that's good. Like we saw the best first. We saw the best properties, and this was the best. So what works better for you? And now, in this case, he had a raise recently that the lender wasn't familiar with, and they do have a little bit more room. And I got him a little bit more money for the sale of their old place, so they actually have a little more money to work with. So they actually can afford about $40,000 more. So we're actually started looking at things that are about $40K more, and lo and behold, a couple of things that are quite a bit nicer have shown up, which is what Simon's showing right now. And I'm leaning on those motivations. I'm leaning on those things to be the heavy lifters of making a decision. So knowing why that's important, knowing what their motivations are extremely helpful. It's not just, I want to buy a home, right? Because at some point they may decide, this is a lot of work. Because there is some work involved, right? And how motivated they are. So the next step is their preference profile. This is a really great page that I actually need to steal a couple more questions from this to put into my packet, so I remember to ask it every single time. One of the reasons that you have these presentation packets is to make sure you're always asking the questions. One of the reasons you have a buyer lead sheet is to make sure you're always asking the same questions, right? So, and some of these you actually could collect at your pre-qualification call with the buyer, but you see in here that what is your favorite way to receive information or updates? What's the best way to reach you? One that's not in here. When's the best time to go look for properties? if you can find out, by the way, just in general, if someone had any time in the week, completely flexible schedule, what's the best day to go? What's the best day and time to go look at properties in general?
Weekends?
Second best, what's the best?
Weekends.
What's that?
Weekends.
That's what he said. Second best. That's the second best. What's the best?
What did you say?
Weekends.
Oh, I thought you should go like Tuesday or something, the day they get posted on MLS.
So,
The day they let you.
so the best day of the week is a Friday afternoon. No, that's a great thought, but no, it's because most properties, the majority of properties hit the market on either a Thursday or a Friday, Thursday sometime or Friday morning. The majority of properties hit the market then. And so the best day to go to see properties is going to be Friday afternoon, so you can be the first one in there and be the first one to put in an offer. Maybe you can get an offer accepted before it even goes into the weekend, right? On those brand new properties. Second best day is Saturday, third best day is Sunday, fourth best day is Thursday, then Wednesday, then Tuesday, and then Monday. Why is Monday the worst day? Say again?
It seems like that's when everyone's putting their deadlines to accept offers.
Yeah, they're either, if it hasn't been marked as under contract, then it probably will be. It went under contract Sunday night, they just haven't got them changing it. They're reviewing offers at noon on Monday, and so by the time you see it at 1, you're too late. Like Mondays are by far the worst day to go look at properties. It's partially because it's a huge effort challenge, because they send you 8 properties and 2 are actually something that you get into, right? And so and you're doing a lot of work to try to figure that out. So as far as time suck, showings on Monday suck. Tuesdays aren't a whole lot better. Tuesday night, maybe, if you set them all up Tuesday afternoon, maybe. Wednesdays, the one good thing about like a Wednesday showings is you're gonna mostly catch properties that didn't go under contract over the weekend, over the first weekend. And right now, only about half are going into contract over the weekend. So by late Tuesday, sometime Wednesday, you kind of have a pretty good idea of what those properties are. So that's sometimes a good place to catch deals. So if you're working with a challenging buyer, a buyer that needs a seller concession in order to get under contract because they're doing a first time home buyer program of $1,000 down and need the seller to pay for the closing costs because they only have $1,000. They're like, or they're either contingent on selling something else or whatever that might be, right? Then catching those ones that didn't sell the first weekend can often be a very successful strategy for those buyers. So anyways, building your preference profile, finding out what their work schedule is like so you know when good days they can go out. If I can get buyers out during the weekday because I have flexibility, then I can save, especially during the busier times of the year, I can save my weekends for the buyers that work Monday through Friday, 8 to 6, they have kids that they have to put down. There's no way they can see something during the week, and their boss, and it's a job where they can't go ask their boss, can I have a half day, right? There's jobs like that. And so if you're gonna be in that situation, then you're gonna be showing them homes on Saturday and Sunday, right? So you want to save those weekends for those kind of people if you can. If you have a buyer that has total flexibility because they're a self-made billionaire and they just don't really care, they're going to go look at $2 million homes and we can go anytime. Okay, then fine. Let's go on let's go Friday afternoon, or maybe Friday morning, or Thursday, or something like that. And maybe the $2 million homes are selling a little slower, so that you don't have to worry as much about being the first one in there, whatever it is, right? So knowing what their time schedule is, knowing how they like to be communicated with, knowing the best methods of communication. Do they prefer calls? Sometimes I get clients. I know most of us are in that age group where we'd probably rather text than call, but I definitely have had clients that calling is about the only way I get a hold of them. I text them and I never get a response. Rarely. I had one guy, he didn't even know how to check texts. He wasn't getting notifications, didn't know how to check them. It's like, we texted that to you. It's like, can you send them another way? I emailed it to you. Can you send me another way? I can call you and describe them. Do you need me to mail you the MLS sheets? Like, you have a fax machine? I don't know how to use ours, but carrier pigeons. So the next part is going to be your home's wish list. Now, they're talking about like, I love some of these, like, what are the non-negotiables for your home? If you had to name the top 5 non-negotiables, what would they be? I have another method that I use very often. It's called, I call it my wants and needs list.
What?
Wants and needs list. And so what I do, and I actually have this on my lead sheet. I literally just do a T, and I'm like wants, needs. Depending on who I'm talking to, a conversation that I often will have will say, will go something along the lines of, I'll ask, I'll be like, well, do you know what the difference is between a want and a need? And they'll be like, well, yeah, I mean, you know, needs or something like that are must-haves, I guess, and wants are things that that we both have, right? And I'm like, yeah, and sometimes I use this depending on the situation. Sometimes I'll tell us a fake story, and I would even tell them it was a fake story about my wife. This is not my wife; anyone knows her. But we'd go out shopping, and that's why people know it's not about her because she hates shopping. But we'd go out shopping, and we at the mall, and she'd look at a pair of shoes, she's like, oh, Conrad, I need those shoes. I really need those shoes. I'm like, don't you have like 10 pairs of those same looking shoes at home? They're like, oh no, but these are a little bit different than all this. They're like, I need those. And really, what was that? That was just a really high want. Really wants those shoes. Does she need those? Probably not, right? Now, maybe we're walking by another store and then there's another pair of shoes and she said, oh, but Conrad, I need those shoes. I'm like, well, why do you need those shoes? Well, because my work shoes that are padded on the bottom because I stand all day are worn through and you can literally see a hole in them. I need a new pair to replace that. Okay, that's a need, right? So when we're talking about wants and needs, what I'm looking for is what are the things that you absolutely must have? You will not look at a home unless it has X. Now, for most of my clients, it has to have at least one bathroom. This is where I use my bathroom joke with the clients, right? It has to at least have one bathroom. They're tired of going to the outhouse, right? Ha ha. Yeah, I know, I'm dry humor. And so now for other clients, I actually had a client where they're an older couple and they needed a pool. A pool in the backyard. So I dug into this. I was like, why do you need a pool in the backyard? And they're like, well, you know, we already own a nice house and all those type of things. And so in order to sell that house and move into the next one, we have grandkids. They're about 5, 8, and 10. And we want them, every time they come over and visit, we want them to come and play in our pool. And in order for us to buy the next place, in order for that to be worth it to us, we need a pool in the backyard. Now, for most of my clients, the pool a need. No, but for these guys, it was. So what was the first thing I was looking for on my search is where are all the homes with pools in Denver, Colorado? There are a few. I sold a few. There's a few. I just sold one earlier this year. With a pool, right? Well, and then the next question then becomes, well, if I can find you a home for the right price and there was room to put a pool in the backyard, would that be an option? I'm like, well, maybe. It's a lot of work. I'm like, okay, well, let's see what we can find with a pool. And maybe we have to make one. All right, cool. But for most of my clients, is that a need that they're going to have on their need list? No. Sometimes it's a want. I've heard it. But a lot of times clients are like, oh, I'd love it. I'd love it if we could have a fireplace. Here's where I'm really going thinking. When we're talking about wants and needs, they'll tell me like, oh, I need 4 bedrooms. Oh, tell me about why you need 4 bedrooms. That's awesome. Well, there's one for us. And then there's one that we need for our kid. And then we need a guest room, and then we need an office. Oh, so let me ask you this. If we found a house that had 3 bedrooms and there was a space for an office, maybe it was like a section of the basement, but it wasn't really a bedroom. I mean, would that work? Oh yeah, that'd be fine. Okay, cool. So what do I put in my wants and needs? My needs is 3+ beds. My wants is 4 beds. And I'll put in here plus office, right? So I'm writing that out and I'm saying to myself, okay, we need at least 3 bedrooms and we need an office space because they work from home all the time. And they would love 4 beds, but the need is, so what's my MLS search based on? 3+ beds. And then we'll look to see if there's any of them that happen to have. Now, if I come up with 270 results with all of our wants needs in, and I have this one on here, I might change it to 4 because 270 results is way too many for them sit through, right? I want to keep them for sure under 100. Ideally, like 40 would be great. Get much less than that. It's like 15. That's not, might spread that a little.
Okay, if this question is not for now, please tell me.
Okay.
If I'm working with a client, right, they have their mortgage, loan, whatever, they have two sets of need possibilities, because their goal, regardless of how much money they have, is to keep them mortgaged at a certain level with roommates or whatever. So they're willing to do like a 2-bedroom thing, but it would have to be a lower price point so the mortgage stays low, or
2 searches.
you can do 2 searches.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
You can set up 2 automatic emails that go out to them. And I label the subject in each one as in the subject, when they go into their portal in the matrix, that portal will literally, they can click on each one. They can switch searches in there and they can see what results come up under each one. And they can go back and forth between them. So yeah, sometimes I have people that have like 3 or 4 searches based on location, areas, on things like that. I have one person looking at house hack, so we have 4 searches set up for them. One's for 4 plexes because that can go up to a certain price. One's for 3 plexes because that can go up to a slightly lower price. One's for duplexes that goes up to an even lower price. One's for individual properties that they, hopefully get roommates for or something like that. But what they can qualify for, they can max out these conventional loan requirements, right? So I just am maxing them all out because they don't really want to go to a jumbo product. Okay, cool. And they're trying to do this. So I end up with 4 searches for these people, and very little pops up in any of them because it's really hard to find multi-unit properties right now. But that's the idea. So then we're going through all of these wants and needs, and then what's one of the last questions that I'm usually asking after I've kind of talked about bedrooms, bathrooms, location. Oh, by the way, I print out a map of Denver Metro. And if I know kind of an area, I might print out something more specialized to where they're looking, but I'll print out a map of Denver Metro and I'll literally have them draw on the map. And I'll be like, well, what's the furthest north that you feel like you'd be willing to go? What's the furthest west you would go? What's the furthest south? What's the furthest east that you would go? If you went beyond that, it'd be just a little too far.
How much do you narrow down a specific neighborhood? I mean, initially, are you just kind of looking?
It varies. For instance, the clients that Simon's out with right now, they're trying to get into specific neighborhoods that are close to these schools.
Okay.
And so I will start them in the neighborhood that they ideally want, but then I'll often push out from there a little bit because it's close, right? And one of the things I tell my clients, again, this is about future pacing with them, is I'll tell them, I'm like, hey, look, when I set up this search for you, I can get really detailed on all sorts of little things. So if you want to search by school district or an elementary school that it serves or whatever you want to, I can do that from my end. You won't be able to on your end, but I can on mine, which is really cool. And at the same time, when I'm setting up the search, I tend to push boundaries just a little bit. Now, this isn't because I'm not listening, because I'm taking notes on everything you're saying. It's because I can't name the number of times I've had a buyer say, I absolutely need 4 bedrooms. And they end up buying a 3-bedroom house. Or I absolutely need to be right here, and they end up buying over here. Or I absolutely must have a 2-story home, and they end up buying a ranch, right? So now, if there's ever a time I'm showing you some properties, I'm sending them over to you, and you see some stuff in there, and you're just like, yeah, this is a definite no-go. I'm never going to buy something like this. It doesn't even come close to meeting our needs. Let me know, and I'll make adjustments, right? I'm not trying to make you mad. Right? I'll never be insulted. These aren't my houses. So I'll never be insulted if you're just like, I hate this house. Like, throughout the whole thing. Never a big deal. My job is to help you find the best property for you. And based on experience, I found that sometimes pushing a couple of boundaries here and there sometimes helps you find something you didn't consider before and might help you get there. So when they do get pretty specific on a neighborhood.
Yeah, you have somebody looking for specific school districts, where you need to be. But
yeah,
if you have just like no kids, single guy.
Yeah, I push boundaries a lot. And now the flip side to that is, how much do you like driving?
Right.
Like, if they have an ideal area and you can find enough right there, let's get them in that ideal area. I mean, that's the idea between the wants and needs. If they have a one area, like, oh, it'd be really awesome if I could live in Cherry Hills. Yeah, someone we all love to live
I
in
just
Cherry
started to
Hills.
see that area yesterday for the first time ever.
Yeah,
Yeah, the whole view mansion, the whole Cherry Hills Village.
it's amazing, right? It's like, my ideal would be to live in Cherry Hills. What's your budget? 300,000. So you want to buy a corner of one of their mother-in-law suite, third house things? It's about what that's going to cost. Anyways, you get the idea. So we're making their home wish list. Page 11 in the participant guide notes as you can use page 11 in the participant guide to take notes to as you practice the home wish list questions. So you can actually kind of jot down those notes as you go through that. So it starts with the home wish list and then moves to questions about neighborhood. The other thing, depending on your client, you can also ask a little bit about their hobbies, the things that they do, because you can sometimes find things like, oh, we go skiing all the time. All right, so maybe they want to be on the west side instead of the east side. That's east side sometimes cheaper, and their budget might change that. Yeah, sometimes. So you have to find balance. And I'll tell people it does sometimes come down to weighing out options. What's more important to you? Having a townhome, a larger place in Aurora, or a small condo in Lakewood that you can easily get up to the mountains from? Is space more important or ease of access to the slopes more important? Because they're both going to cost kind of similar, potentially, at the size. But you get the idea. And they're gonna have to decide where they might have to have priorities and decide which ones. What I'll often do in the one side, the last thing I'll say on the one side is I'll say, what are your top, like, really wants? Because they'll usually have a pretty long wants list, like fenced in backyard and all these kind of different things, and a fireplace. And ideally it's a gas fireplace because we don't really want a wood one. And we really like a gas stove. I prefer cooking with gas stove. Like, I've had first time home buyers that have a budget of like 250,000 tell me all this type of stuff. And I'm just like, let's just find you something that can actually get a roof over your head. That's not a carpet box. Yes, in Denver. Yeah. But if they can tell me what their top ones are, sometimes what happens is I hit their needs and find a couple of their top ones. And guess what we do when I find that? They'll talk to them. I say, hey, look, we've got all your needs hit. And we even got you a couple of bonus things. We got you that gas stove and we got you this. You want to put in an offer? Yeah, this is awesome. Sweet, let's do it. All right. So neighborhood insights. Why do you think you want to include information about neighborhoods in the buyer presentation? What is this? What is these neighborhood insights? What does it demonstrate? Access.
Knowledge.
It demonstrates expertise, right? You're popping these in there, and you can use different things to do this, but you're popping this in there to show expertise as the expert. As newer agents, is that sometimes a concern or a question in the back of your mind of like, how do I show that I'm worthy of them using me? Why they should use me instead of some other agent that they may or may not know? And so by doing this, you're helping to solidify that, hey, I have market knowledge. I know what's going on in the market. If we have time, I'll show you one of the things that I use for talking about the Denver market and showing market knowledge. It's a diagram that I draw out. Someday I'm going to turn it into actually like something that I can use like on a PowerPoint where it actually, instead of me hand drawing it out every single time someday. And but I'll show you guys that at the end. I don't want to take the time now. I want to make sure we get through the material in here, but remind me about a little bonus thing at the very end. Yeah, you're providing market knowledge. Where do you find information for the neighborhood insights page? So you can
So you can use designs to create a snap for each neighborhood or a zip code that you want to include in neighborhood insights, and it will actually get you all this information. If you're like not wanting to use Keller Williams tools that make things like easy, you could do all the research yourself on the MLS. You can create all this by crunching numbers from the MLS, but it's a lot easier to just go ahead and pop into the neighborhood snap feature in the command, and you can create the snap for each neighborhood zip code you want to include, and it'll actually literally give you average list price, average selling price, like all this information that they're listing right there.
So I was creating my buyer presentations like a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And I was having a hard time for this section, like getting anything to say. Like I put a zip code in and put something in, and drag it into the little section.
Yeah.
And then I would go to the next template, go to the next page, like 30.
It wasn't saying.
Then I go back to this one and it'd be back to like Barton Hills and Hyde Park instead of like Cherry Hills Village and whatever else. But
How interesting.
and I have a meeting with Steven on Friday to
I would,
check that out. Right?
yeah, I would definitely, I don't know if there's a special save that you have to hit on it to,
And it would say like I go to the next template and say last save 10:36, blah blah.
right, but then it's still, yeah, hopefully Steven can help you with that. I know, I haven't used this specific slide, in mine. I have a different presentation that I built a long time ago. Though I'm seeing some things in here that I'm just like, I should probably steal some of that.
Yeah.
And so I haven't used this specific slide, but I do the same idea of getting some, I want market statistics to share with them.
Okay.
And they're going to be, I mean, anywhere from finding information from either our office statistics, MLS statistics, or my statistics, market statistics. I'm finding some of these things to incorporate into the presentation to make it current, accurate, and up to date in order to talk about, in order to, again, present myself as that market expert. I want them to see me as that way. So whether or not you use this specific page,
Right.
or you do something with the same intent, the idea is to demonstrate your expertise as a real estate professional.
Okay.
Specifically, if wire, this is there.
Yeah, if this isn't missing, I guess the buyer wouldn't know that this is missing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'm the one that knows this.
Yeah, it's all what you know and whatnot there. So how would you go about choosing what neighborhoods to include in the neighborhood insights? Yeah, you had the pre-qualification call and you found out that they're like, hey, they're qualified to work with and they're looking in these areas. What neighborhoods are you most interested in? All right, let's include a couple of those as part of our insights. All right. Next part is the education, how buying a home works. If a buyer knows what to expect and is confident, and a buyer who knows what to expect is a confident buyer. Confident buyer is easier to work with, and an anxious buyer who mentions objections. An anxious buyer, they're going to mention objections throughout the entire process. They're not going to trust. By giving them the process, this is what to expect. You're going to give them a better idea of like where we're going and how we'll get there. And now, buyer presentations, and I could have said this at the beginning, are geared towards every personality style, right? There's different styles of personalities. You have your engineers that like want to know all the details up front. You have your sensitive people who like the security. They like to know that they're going to be taken care of and loved on, right? So you're asking a lot of more emotional questions on that. It's like, why is that important to you? And if you're as dedicated as I am to finding you the right house, I'm confident we're going to find it in a time frame that you need. You're giving them that kind of thing. And so you're dealing with each one of these types of personalities. Well, this one really speaks to the people who are just like the planners. They're like, I don't even know what to expect. All right, so here's the timeline that you can expect. Our first step is going to be, you're going to be partnering with the agent. You already got one thing checked off the list. You're partnering with me, and we're going to actually talk about, get insights into what you're looking for, seeing what's hot in the market, and what we're going to. We're going to get access to any off-market properties by going through me that we can find. You're going to view market averages and complete your needs assessment. Actually, we already finished your needs assessment, so we're just like checking things off left and right. Yes. The next thing that you're going to do is we're going to get you pre-approved. So I'm going to hook you up with an amazing lender. I'll usually give, like personally, I usually give 2 or 3 lenders so that they have a choice. But then, you know, when you give them 3 lenders, you can be like, you know what, he's been doing awesome for me. I really like him. You can give them some suggestions on maybe who to call first, but you give them options, right? And you want to make sure that they understand the difference between like pre-approved and pre-qualified. Who here knows the difference between pre-qualified and pre-approved?
Pre-approved is like for sure what you can afford, right? And pre-qual is kind of a range, I guess.
Yeah, so a pre-qual is the lender calls up, asks you a few questions. They may or they may not actually run through the full credit report, but they'll just ask you like, okay, so what do you make? How much money do you have in the bank? What other expenses do you have? What other debts do you have? Okay, based on the information you told me, you should be qualified for X dollars. I can run a pre-qualification, right? Like I can do all that. I can ask them the questions, find out what their debts are, find out what their monthly income is, what payment they can qualify for based on that, knowing front end and back end ratios, and I can actually figure that out. A pre-approval is the buyer actually submitted their tax returns, they submitted their pay stub, they submitted their bank statements, they submitted all this information, and the lender verified it all, and they said, yeah, based on the information we've collected, I don't see any red flags, yellow flags, everything looks good, we're green light to go, you are approved for up to X dollars. Sweet. Which one do you think is more valuable to a seller? Pre-approval by far. You can see why, right? It's like, it's either verified or unverified. And if you're going to accept an offer and you have 3 offers coming in, which one are you going to choose? The one that has a verified approval. In fact, if it's and even better as a lender who actually does a full underwritten pre-approval. Fully underwritten pre-approval means that they actually took all that documentation and they gave it to an underwriter to review and sift through and find everything and ask for additional documentation and all that kind of stuff until finally you have a fully underwritten pre-approval. So then now at this point, usually you can, all you need is the property, the appraisal, and the title work, you can close. Those closes can actually go really fast. I know lenders that can do that in like 2 weeks. And if you can close in 2 weeks, you're competing against a cash buyer that wants 2 weeks, you might actually be able to compete, maybe. So that's why pre-approval is vastly important. Now, you need to be able to have that conversation with your buyer saying, this is why you need to get pre-approved. Because if they don't understand why they need to go through that effort of submitting documents and doing all that stuff, are they going to until they get under contract? Probably not, right? So pre-approval is huge. I have certain lenders that they won't even issue pre-qualifications. They just jump straight to pre-approval. They jump immediately to, okay, great, now send us this documentation. Because do most buyers know that they understand that someone could pre-qualify you just by talking to you? Yeah, they don't know that. So they're just like, oh, this is the process. And since it's just the process, guess what we get? We get pre-approvals very easily, or a lot faster and better. And then I am knowing more confidently going out with someone who's fully pre-approved. Ooh, I don't want to waste my time with pre-qualified people. I don't want to waste my time.
Can someone be pre-approved and then not underwriting?
Say that again?
Can someone be pre-approved and then it falls apart at the underwriting?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee. Yeah, they could go buy a car, they could lose their job, or something could come up under underwriting that wasn't caught in the initial pre-approval. Because when they're going through the underwriting, they're going with a fine-tooth comb and they're looking for every little thing, especially since the Great Recession. I got a loan back in 2007. It was 100% financing, stated loan, interest only, 5-year ARM. So what that means is they pulled my credit. I stated how much money I make. I stated my assets, stated verbally, just told them, right? Assets. They gave me 100% financing on an interest-only loan that was fixed rate for the first 5 years and then a variable rate thereafter. Interest only, meaning I only had to pay interest. I never had to pay principal on it. This is a crazy loan that does not exist anymore. It should never have existed. I'm thankful it did exist, but it is one of the big reasons why the financial crisis happened, is because people would say, oh yeah, I make $200,000 to afford that. Sure, why not? They're like, oh, I should get a raise sometime soon. And values are gonna go up. I'll refinance then. By the way, I honored that loan. I never missed a payment. I was great on it. I was not one of the reasons the recession happened. But that loan is.
After how long did you refinance into more?
Actually, to be honest, I never, because after 5 years, so when I got the loan, interest rates were about 6 something. And after those 5 years, that was in 2007. So by 2012, the interest rate was actually like 5, a little less than. And so my interest rate went down, and it was a decent interest rate. And then every year it kept going down and down and down. And to the point where my interest rate was something, I had an interest rate of like 2 point something at one point. Because every year it kept going down. I was like, oh, it's worse. Then eventually I ended up using it as a investment property. Eventually I sold the investment property, and then I paid off the loan. But I actually never had to actually refinance out of it because it worked. It was, yeah, it's a crazy loan.
It's a good intention, but it was just abused.
It was abused, right? It was, and honestly, loans like that were designed for people like us. They were designed for like realtors who have income, but it's hard to verify and document. They were designed for people like us, but then they're used for everyone because fat cats on Wall Street wanted more of these subprime loans and wanted more mortgages to put into these mortgage-backed securities and all this kind of things. And so they kept saying, send us more loans, send us more loans. And so lenders were like, okay, we'll send you more loans. And they're like, well, I can't qualify them for any of these products, but I can on this one. There's a reason they weren't qualifying on these other ones. You actually never had that loan. I don't care. Worked out well. So we're talking them through the process. We're future pacing what's going to happen. You know, one of the things that a huge part of future pacing on this, when you're talking about the home buying process, is okay. So the next step is we're going to actually find your next home. So here's how that's going to work: is we're actually going to I'm going to send you lists of properties that you're going to favorite or heart, and we're going to set up a date and time that we're going to go out and look at some properties. Now you said that you usually are available. You have Fridays or half days for you anyway. So maybe Friday afternoon being one of the best times to go out and look at properties would be a time that we'd set up. In fact, I know you guys already did your pre-approval. You already talked to my lender because you're on top of it, buyers. I love that you're already on top of it, your buyer. So actually, I have an opening on Friday at 1. Would that work for you? Okay, what am I doing there? Soft close, right? I'm like, yeah, okay. Oh yeah, that would be awesome. Well, I'll get you penciled in there. And so then what we're going to do, we're going to send you all these properties, and then you're going to select all the ones and parts. And ideally, the day before, you'll have a list of 3 to 5, maybe as many as 8 properties that are the very best properties of what we send. They're like, yeah, I am desperate to get in these. These are awesome. Now, I do give a piece of homework to my buyers. I know it's high school again, it sucks. But so I give a piece of homework. And what that homework is I actually ask my buyers to drive by properties before we go in and see them. Why do you think I might ask a buyer to drive by a property before we go in and see it?
To get a feel for the neighborhood, make sure that it's pretty big, and not only just that one property, but essentially everything that's around.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I can't name the number of times I've driven up to a property, and right next door is this Bisno Pink apartment complex with blacked out windows that look like a meth lab is happening there. And it's like, there is no way in hell we're living next to that, right? Now, the agent did a great job of presenting the property to the public. They kept that right out of the shot in the photos, right? But by driving by, you learn about the neighborhood, the neighbors, what's going on there. And we can eliminate those properties. So that way we're only seeing the very best properties first. Okay, so now I understand amazing property might pop up on the market right before we're going out and showing, like that morning, and you don't have a chance to go drive by it. So you know what a really cool tool is for that? Yeah, Google Street View. jump on Google Street View, look around. Now, sometimes they're dated, sometimes it's a little off, but at least gives you a feel for the neighborhood. And I can't name the number of neighborhoods that block by block change. So even when you're familiar with the neighborhood, I highly recommend you do this. And so then we're gonna go check out the top 3 to 5 properties, and we're gonna go look at those properties and compare them to each other. During that process, I'm gonna ask you things like, do you wanna make an offer on this property? Now, I'm not asking you that because I'm trying to pressure you into making an offer. I'm asking that because I care about the follow-up questions. When you say yes or no, I'm going to ask you why or why not. And by asking you why or why not, I'm learning more about what it is that you like about properties and what you hate about it. So if we don't happen to find the perfect property on this first outing, by the next outing, I guarantee you we will. Because on average, my buyers, my first-time home buyers, we actually go out on average 1.8, 1.9 times, so about 2 times. Some of them, a lot of them find it on, I'm amazed at how many find it on the very first time, but my first-time buyers, they feel like they might need to get a second outing. They're not, like, sometimes we don't narrow it this fast. Now, my experienced buyers, they're even better. They're at about 1.2 to 1.3 outings before we find the right house to put an offer in. Now, it's just because we're a little bit more skilled. They've seen houses before, they've done this before. So we're a little faster at narrowing in on it. And oftentimes it's one of the first houses that we see because we're seeing the very best houses first. Now, what am I doing there in that process? When I'm talking about this, what am I doing? We hear. Because this is literally my script from talking about the buying process. What do you hear me saying? What am I helping do with these buyers?
Cut down the number of showings.
Just listen to their, reactions, I guess. Just...
What are the words, and the words that I'm using, what are they? I'm trying to think of a better way to ask the question. What am I doing with the words I'm using? What do you hear me saying that might help us in the process?
So
Setting their expectation.
understanding that you're refining the search so that you're essentially not wasting time and essentially being as effective as possible.
Yeah, I am setting it up, the expectation for them, that we're going to go out 1 to 2 times. We're going to see 3 to 5 properties each time. And by the time we've gone out twice, they should have found a property they want to put an offer in. If we are more than 2 times, I have buyers apologizing to me, saying, man, I'm so sorry, I'm ruining your averages. And then I can then say, oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Well, I've plenty of buyers that find the first time. Sometimes it takes a couple of times to really dig in on exactly what we're looking for. But they're apologizing to me because they're afraid they're wasting my time because it took them 3 outings to find the right property. Okay. Now, in this market, it may not be as big of a deal because, well, there's only 10 houses that fit their criteria anyway, so we're going to just go see those and make a decision, right? But at the same time, I want them to be expecting. Now, it's not quite like house hunters where you'll see 3 houses, you choose 1, right? But kind of. I mean, we're going out, and what am I saying? What am I doing when every time I'm saying, I said it probably 3, 4, 5 times in that process, we're going to see the best houses first. Why am I saying that so much?
Because it doesn't leave room for them to wonder, well, maybe if, no one opens up.
100%. We are seeing the best houses first. So they're not going to sit there and be like, well, maybe there's something better out there. Even the way I show properties is geared towards that same thing. I don't want to end, when I set up my circle of homes that we're seeing, I don't jump all over the place. I know some agents that do sometimes. But if I'm seeing 3 to 5 houses, my last house is never the best house. Why? Because you like this house. Ooh, this one's better. Ooh, this one's better. Ooh, this one's better. Hey, this one's better. That was the last house. What happens? If we see one more, it'll be even better. No. We don't want that. We want to do this just like the arch, storytelling arch, right? Where you build, you peak, and then it comes down, right? That's a storytelling, how you're supposed to do storytelling, right? We want to do the same thing with homes. Ideally, we want to peak somewhere in like 2nd, 3rd, if you're showing 5 houses. So the 4th and 5th can reiterate to them that those are worse. That's the ideal. I've definitely had times when I know the second house or the third house is gonna be the one they buy. I'm looking at them like, this is the one, right? So we go see one house just to get us started, right? And then we go see the next house and it's like, and it's a little bit better. And we go see the third house and I know this is the one. So we're setting, I purposely put that in that position. And they've been time and they're just like, oh my gosh, we love this house. Like, this is it. I'm like, yes, do you want to go write an offer now or should we go see the other two? Right? Okay, so we go see one more. I'm like, oh, no, definitely the last house. Like, okay, great. Do we want to go write the offer now or should we go see the last one? Oh, we're out here. Let's go see the last one. Go see that. Definitely number 3. Sweet. Should we go? Sounds like we need to go write an offer on number 3. All right. That's setting them up for not having to go out 5 times and show 97 homes. I learned that because I had to go show 97 homes to someone and then they never bought anything. Oh, I can't find anything I like. That's lady. I don't remember her name anymore. But this is what we're doing, right? It's being strategic about these things. Now you learn these lessons either by listening to someone like me, or you just go experience it and realize that, oh shoot, I should have listened. And you go, eventually learn to do it. But it's being strategic about that. So I'm future pacing is what I'm doing. I'm describing what's going to happen. So that when that happens, they just fall right within the outline I presented to them. Now, when they divert, some buyers they'll divert off of what you've said. This is how it typically happens. And sometimes you roll with it. Sometimes you just reel them back in. It just kind of depends. It's a little case by case, but you're giving them the ideal. So then, because most of the time they're just going to fall right into line. And then that's how you lead a life by design, which is very much a whole thing. But that's how you can actually design your schedule and your life and not be beholden to the buyer, but rather the buyer's following what you're suggesting through. And it comes to how you're presenting the process, right? Showing value. The other part of showing value. What's one of the biggest things? Now, what's the number one thing buyers want from buyer's agents, from their agent? What's the number one thing buyers want? Out of all the surveys, what's the number one thing that a buyer wants from their agent?
Communication.
Not quite. They want them to find their house. Now, we know in this day and age of technology, how are most houses found? They find them online, maybe from things that we sent them, maybe from searching terrible sites like Zillow or other sites out there, your KW app maybe, or things along those lines. But they're they generally kind of find the house, right? But you're helping them narrow it down. You're helping them make that decision. Communication is high on that list. What is the number one actual value that we as agents really do provide buyers? It's expertise in negotiation, right? That's where I save my buyers thousands of dollars. That's where I get my buyers into properties, even in this market, where we get it for $20,000 under the actual what it appraises for. It's because of that piece of it, right? And so and one of the things that I'm doing with that future pacing, and I do this both at the buyer consultation as well as when I'm out at that showing with the and we're looking at the top property. I know it's going to be the right one, and then I may get to the point where I can tell that they're not quite ready to make a decision yet. They're not ready to say yes, let's go write an offer, right? Because a lot of times people are like their commitment phobia, right? So so what I do then is I'm like, okay, well, let's say you do like this house. If you were to tell me, Conrad, we really do like this house. We kind of want to take the next steps. Well, here's what those next steps would be. And I give them 3 next steps. The first one is that I'm going to do my homework. So I'm going to dig really deep into the value of this property. I'm going to do the same research that the listing agent did in presenting what to list it for to the sellers. Now, here's what's interesting. Sometimes sellers list them high. And so they list it high, hoping that maybe someone might be willing to pay that because it's a crazy market out here, right? Sometimes sellers list it right on market value. And they do that and just trying to aim for it. It's actually the most common. And then sometimes sellers will list it a little low, hoping to get multiple offers to drive it up. But until I do my homework on this, on exactly what's sold within a half-mile radius of this in the last 6 months that are similar to this property, same way an appraiser will do it. Until I do that homework, we don't know exactly how they price it. So we don't know what our offer strategy should be. So that's the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let you know what's the top end, what's today's market value, the top edge of today's market value gonna be? Well, if you paid X, would that get you into tomorrow's market value? As in paying over what we think it's gonna appraise for? We might have to do that, maybe, hopefully not. Or maybe they underpriced and we know we need to go $50,000 above list price because man, they really underpriced this. I don't know. We'll find that out. The second piece of homework I'm gonna do, I'm gonna talk to the listing agent and I'm gonna ask them all sorts of questions, some of which they actually have no business answering. So I'm gonna ask them basic questions like, how many offers do you have? If you had an ideal offer in front of you, what would that look like? Would your sellers consider responding quickly if we could present an ideal offer? What would that offer look like? That might motivate a seller to sign now instead of waiting until the end of the weekend. Things along those lines that they might answer, most of which they probably will. And then even questions like, well, what are the motivations of the seller? Should the listing agent ever answer that question? No. Is there any reason why you can't ask that question? No. It's how many agents like to talk. All of them, right? Pretty much.
So when you ask what are the motivations of the seller, you need to know.
Yeah, what are the motivations for the seller for selling? Why are they selling? Oh, they're getting a divorce and they're splitting. All right, this is gonna be helpful to know because do both parties have to sign off on this? Yeah, you have to get agreement from both of them. All right, so we're probably gonna need a little bit longer response time because of that. Yeah, you can't really rush this one because of that. We have to get both on one party. Have they been talking really communicatively well? Or are they at odds with each other? Is this an amicable divorce or is it not? Now, some of the stuff they probably shouldn't be telling me, but by the time I'm like working with them to put together a great offer, so by the time I'm there, sometimes they will, right? They'll just tell me all sorts of stuff. One of my favorite questions. So when you guys went to set the price on this property, did the seller listen to your pricing strategy or did they more or less choose the price? So when you guys went to price this property and put it on the market at the price you listed it at, did the seller listen to your pricing suggestions or is this more of the price that the seller wanted? Sometimes. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my. They'll be like, oh yeah. I was thinking more like this price. But we decided, the seller really wanted this price, so we decided to list it there. Great. We're the only offer? Yeah, so far. Cool. I agree with you on your price. Not the list price. That seems a little high. Yeah, it really is. Thanks. Sweet. This is how you get homes for well under appraised value. Sometimes I give listing agents when they're not very good listing agents, I'll actually give them the comps to give to the appraiser. I was like, yeah, here's my cover letter and the comps that I usually give to my listing appraiser. And it's like literally just like, I have like a format that I use. And it's like, this is what I always use. Now I don't do that with, like, if they're experienced agents, you can look up their stuff on using what is it, Home Snap or whatever, or one of those apps that they'll look at your last 2 years of production. You can look up stuff like that. You can figure out if they're a big agent or a producing agent or not. So I look up that kind of stuff. If they're brand new, I'll just come into this as like a mentorship role, right? Oh, I'm sure you've got this. And I know this is the first house you've ever listed before in your life. I'm sure you've got this, but here's something that I use whenever I'm meeting with the appraiser. Huh. Oh yeah, I'm about to appraise. Yeah, we got all sorts of little tricks there, but it's about asking all the questions and getting the answers that are gonna help put you in the position to make the best offer, right? So then the third step is, okay, that's some small rants here. The third step is when I talk to when the buyer's making saying, what's the next steps? Do the market research, talk to the listing agent, ask all sorts of questions, and then I come back and make a decision on what the best offer would look like and if we want to make that offer. So I often have buyers that may not be ready to say, yes, I'm ready to make an offer, because how can they? They don't even know what we're going to offer. They don't know if they want to sign on that yet. So then we go back and we just literally say, all right, do you think, is this a house that you'd like me to do the next steps for? To start doing the market research on that specific house and talking to the agent on. Yeah, I think we'd like to know more. Sweet, cool. That's the next step. Okay. And I'm telling them about this at the consultation, and then I'm reminding them about it again at our first outing when there's one that I think that they're willing to make, that I think they might be willing to make an offer. I think it's a good fit for them, that type of thing. And then we just kind of work our way through that. And then we get to the point where I come back with them with all the information. I'm like, okay, so based on what I'm finding, I know this house is listed at 450. I think there's actually 3 other offers right now. They're going to be reviewing them tomorrow. So we'd be in a competitive situation. I think the top end of market value, today's market value, is actually probably around 467, 465 to 470, right in that range. I think you start paying over 470, it's unlikely it's going to appraise. So we might have to use an appraisal gap, or something's going to happen there. Here's what an appraisal gap is, and appraisal gap guarantee, and then so you'd be paying a little bit at tomorrow's value. Now, here's kind of the cool thing: is this neighborhood in the last year has actually appreciated 23%. So if we go about, let's say we went on a $5,000 over list price, over that top of market value, $5,000 would be about 1%. And over the last year, the area has appreciated 20%. So that'd be about 2 weeks worth of tomorrow's value. So instead of getting it at 470, what it's worth today, you'd be paying what it's worth 2 weeks from now at 475, or a month from now at 480. Now, I can't guarantee future appreciation, but based on the trends, that's kind of what we're seeing. Now, statistically speaking, and this is again just, I've already talked to them a little bit about this, 90% of our appreciation actually happens in the first half of the year, 10% of our appreciation happens in the second half of the year. We're in the second half of the year, so realistically, I'm saying a month's worth, but we're probably talking about a month's worth from January. So maybe this will be February's price. Okay, so sounds like it's going to take about 480 to win this one. Probably February's price. Let's say it's worst case scenario, March's price. I mean, that's 6 months from now. Are you going to live there longer than that? Yeah. So I guess the question I have for you is, what would be the price that you feel most comfortable with? Do you want to pay a little bit of tomorrow's price to make sure we get this? I mean, I know you love it. Or are we looking at just coming in at kind of top of today's market value? Oh, by the way, if you pay tomorrow's price, we might need to do something with an appraisal gap guarantee in order to cover that, because that's going to look a lot stronger to the seller than just saying I'm willing to pay 480 and then appraises for 470 anyways. Okay, let's talk about what that can look like. Does that necessarily have to be cash out of hand? No, it's not 10% down. So that could actually come from some of your down payment. You're putting 9% down now, and then it's just that 10,000 comes to cover that appraisal gap. That's if I can't get them to appraise it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell this listing agent exactly how to get it to appraise for even 480 maybe. Because there's one outlier right here. If they count that, I bet they can fudge it up a little. We'll see if we can get it. Okay, cool. Then appraises for 490. I'm like, sweet. Appraiser thought it was worth even more. We still got it at 480. Okay, $10,000 of equity. Instant. I don't know. That's the conversations I'm having with them as we're moving through this, of like, how do we go about this? I'm talking about appraisals. I love talking about appraisals is like, hey, I bought it. Like if there's a gap there, I like talking about paying, you're not overpaying for the property. You're paying tomorrow's value. Because people don't like to overpay their stuff. But if they're paying February's value for a property to get it in today, it's probably worth it. Because you're going to live there for 5 to 10 years anyways, right? All right, let's move forward. If you use Keller Mortgage in your process, you need to make sure you're using affiliated business arrangement disclosure, as there is an affiliation between Keller Mortgage and Keller Williams. Kind of obvious. But this right here, real value, real experience. All of you are newer agents, right? Been in the business less than a year, mostly, right? Know how long you've been in this? 2 years? Okay, cool. If you don't have big numbers to show for showing your experience, put in the office numbers. We work as a team. Put in the production productivity coach group's numbers. I think she calculates those. Eva calculates those pretty regularly. Put in those type of numbers so then you can see. So then, as a way to present, here's my expertise. If they haven't learned it by then, about presenting your value proposition. What makes you different? Why should they work with you? What's the biggest advantage for someone using a new agent person versus an agent who's has a big book of business, been in business for a long time?
You're gonna care for your deal regardless if, you know, if they're only or.
Yeah. As a new agent, what do you have plenty of?
Time.
Right? You have plenty of time. You have lots of time. So you can give them a lot more like personalized, handheld attention. So that's why they should choose you. It's like, I'm going to be able to dedicate my time. And I wouldn't say you're my only client or my first client, but I would be like, you know, I have a really selective number of clients right now. I'm choosing right now to only work with a small number in order to make sure I'm giving that high level of attention and concierge level of service to my clients. I mean, honestly, right now, you may even feel like you're my only client, and I'm going to make sure you feel that way because that's my goal. They're also your only client, but you know, who cares? Or maybe they're not. I don't know. But that's again one way you can compete against maybe an agent who does 50 deals a year. Or something along those lines.
Well, one thing that's been really helpful is saying, like, for me, is saying that, like, every single contract I put out is a double check. Go and play.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can be like, hey, honestly, here's one of the great advantages of working with me is I'm working with one of the best offices in the entire state. It's actually the most profitable office in the state. And there's a reason for that. And so what happens is within our team, all of my contracts are double checked. And that's in order to ensure that there are no mistakes, because that's what helps make sure that the office is super profitable and that you get the best deal. That makes sense, right? It's a good value for you, right? Yeah. So we may even come back with an idea, because since multiple agents are looking at it, another agent may come back with an idea that of how we can even strengthen our offer a little bit better. That isn't a big cost to you, but it's a huge value that might win us the deal. Isn't it better to have multiple agents looking at our offers to make sure we get it accepted? Absolutely. Everything can be turned into a win. All right. So you've prepared the buyer consultation. You've done the preps, the customized buyer presentation for the buyer, and you're actually then doing the actual buyer consultation, which we talked a lot about. The first thing that you're doing with that buyer presentation is, and they talked a little bit about it we call it, actually this is the right page. Let's see if I can send this over here. Right here, at the bottom, welcome to the buyer presentation. You want to set the stage. Basically you're saying, hey, my goal is to give you, I like 5-star more than 10+, but use the words that work for you. We want to get a clear idea of what you're looking for in your new home. So I like to spend the next 20 to 30 minutes exploring the right home with you that you like. We'll call this your 10+ home. With your permission, I like to write notes. We do want to remember everything so I can remember everything that's important to you. You know why you ask for permission and why you take notes, why you ask for permission for it too. It shows that you're listening to them. It shows that you care what they're saying and it's important. So that's why you're putting it down. May seem like a lot, but I'd rather ask you 500 questions now to show you the right 5 homes than ask you 5 questions to waste your time and show you the wrong 500 homes. Does that work for you? Or 97? Yeah. So on the buyer presentation, the agreement, the last thing that you're doing is the goal is to get a buyer representation agreement, to get the buyer listing contract signed, right? It's legal documents that formalizes your actual your actual agreement with them. I like to say this is the document that allows me to represent you. That legally allows me to represent you as your agent. Without this, I'm not legally supposed to be advocating for you. I'm not legally supposed to be negotiating things for you. This is what formalize that so I can be your advocate and do that. And then literally just I go through it. I do have a soft close document that I've used before as well. That is literally just here's what you can expect from me. Here's what I expect from you as my client, And it literally is like 8 bullet points each. I think theirs is like 8, mine's like 10 or 12 bullet points what they can expect from me. There's things like full-time agent working for you to find the best home, reviewing all contracts with you at all times, communicating with you regularly. So it's these kind of just bullet points. This is what you can expect from me. And the thing I expect from them is that they communicate with me, they provide pertinent documents and documentation as needed. The biggest one for me is that if their service commitment ever changes, their circumstances ever change, that they actually let me know right away. So then that way I can refocus my time and attention on an agent, someone that needs me right then, and I'll come back to them once they're ready to go move forward again. So like they decide they need to renew their lease, tell me, please. Don't just do it. So that's another soft close. I'll use that sometimes as my first document. The other thing I'll use as my first documents, it's not required, but the definitions of working relationships. I use that as a soft close document because what does it say in really big bold letters right above their signature section? This is not a contract. It says it right there on the definitions of working relationships, just a single document. So I explain the type of relationships they can have, and then I'll be like, as you can see, this is not a contract. This is just representing that I actually explained this to you. So then I just sign and I pass it to them, put down the pen for them to sign. Usually I would say about 80% of the time, if there's going to be objections, they show up right then of them signing anything. Sometimes it doesn't because it says this is a contract. This is not a contract, but sometimes I'll sign it and then the objection comes up because they're like, well, I'll sign this, but I don't really feel like signing whatever else. Okay, let's talk about that. Like, what is it that concerns you about that? The other thing I have in all my contracts is what's called an easy exit clause. It basically says that at any point in time they're dissatisfied with my service, at any point in time during the contract period, I have this on listings and buyers. All they have to do is let me know, give me of the reason what their dissatisfaction, give me a week to try to fix it. If I can no longer fix it, then the end date of the contract is on the 7th day. They get out of my contracts anytime. And the main reason I do that is because, let's be honest, I don't want to be working with someone that doesn't want to work with me. I don't. But this at least puts them into place so we know the expectations of each other. So then that way, as we're working through, we kind of know what to expect. But if at the end of the day, you don't want to work with me and I don't want to work with you, then I don't want to work with you. So let's just end the contract and let's both move on, be professionals about it, and shake hands. So with that in there, I usually get 90% of my buyer agency contracts get signed.
So how often usually come up with TV for someone?
Rarely.
Yeah.
Rarely. Sometimes I'll find like if you do find like a for sale by owner or something like that, but even then I'm representing. I'm still the buyer's agent and they're the customer, so representing the buyer in that case. Sometimes if it's my property, then that would be the time when I become a transaction agent on that.
Because you kind of default into that if you give them, that buyer disclosure.
Yeah, that is the default relationship. It looks like I might have a question.
Yeah, I'm on Zoom and I do have a question, Conrad. In terms of what you were just speaking about,
That's why I keep going over there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, are you able to unmute yourself or?
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Urza, I can hear you.
Okay, I can't tell if Conrad can hear me or not. I'm wondering if, and maybe he said it, but I'm wondering if
And,
talking about if,
Not hearing you, Marissa.
Yeah, I don't think they can hear us because I was
Sorry.
saying something too and they
Maybe
didn't.
turn it up on there. I have my volume up, but it's, oh, because,
okay.
okay, no, she's coming in through here.
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Just gotta figure it out.
Okay, so, and maybe you said this, but I'm not sure, Conrad, in terms of what you were just speaking about, when you're talking to your clients and saying, you know, if they at any point decide they don't want to work with you and that you're fine with parting ways, is this something that you actually put that verbiage into the contract, or you just say to them?
It's in my contracts. It's in both my listing and buyer, my seller and buyer listing contracts. It's a paragraph I've put in the additional provision sections, and it literally pretty much says almost exactly what I just said. I will be honest, only reason I don't feel comfortable sharing it is because I have not gotten it approved through Damien. I'm pretty sure it's written well, but since that is a contract between me and the buyer, there's a little more leniency on what can be said there, because you can write your own contract with someone else idea. So, but it basically says if at any point in time they're dissatisfied with my services, I mean, they give me written notice of why of their dissatisfaction and 7 days to try to resolve it. If by the end of the 7th day, I'm unable to resolve it to their satisfaction, the way I say it is something like, I forget what the exact verbiage of the contract is, but I change the end date, the expiration date of the contract to the end of the 7th day. So it changes it to the end of that 7th day. The reason I do it that way, instead of saying this contract is canceled and terminated, I don't like that verbiage, because I want to make sure that the holdover period still applies. So if I showed them a property and they're just terminating because they're trying to sneak around me, and I'm the procuring cause for that property, I don't want that to be, I want to get paid. But that would only be if they're like literally like trying to be sneaky about it, because then I'm going to come down on them. And then I'm never going to talk to them again after I get paid, because that's BS, and I don't like people like that in my life. But I still want to get paid for my time. So that's my thought process and all of that. But again, there might be a clause that maybe Eva or maybe the office can provide you if you want something that's already written up. Until I get that approved through Damien Cox, our office attorney, I just don't feel comfortable necessarily handing that one out. Just because of that, because I can't give you legal advice. That's why. Good question. Any other questions right now while we're paused? All right. So as we're getting through that, so I'll work my way through. I start with the easiest to sign to the hardest to sign, right? Why am I doing that? Get in the habit of just signing. There are multiple soft closes through this, or they're progressing in harder closes. So I start with the definitions, because that says it's not a contract. I then go to the advisories. I usually do COVID first, because it's just easy. COVID exists. We're going to be in properties around people. If you're sick, we shouldn't be. And it's possible if you go out in the world, you might get sick. That's basically what it says for the most part. They sign that easily. Then you go to the buyer advisory that tells you all the other things. Not just like, basically this is everything. This is everything I would be advising you of anyways, but it's put in writing by our office attorney, because they want to know that everyone's advising people correctly. So it talks about this, depending on the client and how detailed I go into each and every paragraph, or if I just kind of talking a little bit broader generalities. It depends on my client. If I have a high D personality client that just get to the point, they often show themselves by just trying to find the signature page and signing it. Cool. All right. And I'm always like, you know what, you'll get a copy of all this after we're all done. I'll email and scan and email you a copy of all of it. So you'll get that.
here within the next couple of days. Okay, sweet. Then I go to the buyer agency agreement. I'm just like, so this one is the actual one that establishes our relationship. This is the one that says that I can represent you. I have your name spelled correctly. I have the son with Keller Williams Realty downtown. My full name is actually Brian Conrad Smith. I go by Conrad Smith because there are too many Brian Smith realtors out there. In fact, there was one about 8 years ago that was getting some legal trouble in the real estate community. So that was my breaking point. I decided to go by Conrad from then on out. There's my story. And I just come right. Here's your responsibilities. Here's my responsibilities. Here's what you get extra from me by being your buyer's agent instead of transaction broker. By the way, what is that? That is, I get to actually be an advisor. I can tell you, I can give you advice throughout the process. I can actually advocate for your best interest. And I can be a fiduciary on your behalf. These are big deals because if I'm not getting to do those things, what am I doing? I guess I'm just presenting you, here's a house, do you want to buy it? So I'd rather be your advisor. And plus it's hard for me not to give advice, so it's probably better if I just go ahead and say I'm not going to give you advice. Here's how I get paid. We'll talk about that, right? So what's the one thing that new agents often, for some strange reason, I never understand why, what's the one section that they like to check about how they get paid? How do they like to check it and how should you check it? You guys know what section I'm talking about? Are you familiar enough with the buyer listing contract? So there's a section in there that says you have two options. You can either be seller may pay, buyer is obligated. Seller may pay, buyer is not obligated with the commission. What's the way you're supposed to check it? What's the best way to check it? Is obligated. Why?
New builds, physicals, things like that, may not necessarily guarantee you the payout there or the year. That's
I think it has to do with a 90-day quote period, no?
He's a little closer.
As well.
Yeah, I mean, it can apply on the 90-day because then it obligates the buyer if they do something else. And now you can go both chasing after whether or not it's your commission from the seller or the buyer might be obligated. Then if it is check marks, right? The biggest reason, the most common reason, I should say, is kind of what you're saying. If they're not offering a full commission, whatever that is that you negotiate with the buyer, if the buyer is obligated to pay, you can then negotiate on behalf of the buyer for the seller to cover it. If the buyer is not obligated to pay, you cannot negotiate for the seller to pay the full commission because you're not negotiating on behalf of the buyer. Now you're negotiating on behalf of yourself. Does that make sense?
So I would like select that and then like one of my clients is a friend.
Yeah.
And so if she has to pick a house at 2.8%, I'm not going after her for the 0.3%. It's my choice.
Yes. Just because they select that the buyer is obligated does not mean you have to go chasing after the buyer for the difference. And so here's what I explained to them. If we are in a multiple offer situation and there's like 5 offers and they're offering a 2% commission and the standard commission that I have to charge is 2.8 for my buyers. And by asking the seller to pay for that, that means that we're going to be in a worse negotiating position or we may not get it. I'm never going to ask for that. And I'm never going to go after you for that because I find that most of my buyers are a lot more happy and screaming my name to the rooftops for all their friends and family when I'm not chasing after them for $1,000. And if I get referrals from you, that's worth way more to me than a measly few extra bucks on a commission. I want to get lots of referrals from you, which means I get lots of commission. So how about this? If I end up not getting paid a full commission on a deal, and because we're in a multiple offer situation or whatever it is, what if you just give me an extra referral? Would that seem like a fair deal? Just introduce me to someone that's talking about buying and selling. Because trust me, you're going to be talking about it, and someone's going to say, "Oh, I've been wanting to buy something." Just introduce me. Does that sound fair? Oh yeah, I can do that. Sweet. I like that better, anyways. That's a win-win, right?
But I actually did that because on sale they were offering a premium of 1%. So they were adding that to the buyer So I talked to the listing agent and I said that we would offer more
Yeah,
to cover for my commission.
yes, and I've done that as well. So, and that's where by checking that the buyer is obligated, you can do that legally. If you didn't check that, you're not allowed to do that legally. You're not allowed to negotiate for your commission to be paid because the buyer's not obligated and your job is only to negotiate between the buyer and seller. And since the buyer's not obligated, that means that you're negotiating for yourself, not for the buyer, and then that is no longer legally allowed because you didn't fill out your agreement correctly. In fact, in my additional provisions, I even state out very clearly that I can ask for the full success fee to be paid.
Conrad,
Yes,
I'm sorry, can you hear me online?
I can.
Okay, so I have a question about that because I just had a really interesting situation. I just had my first closing a couple weeks ago, and I did not realize that the permission for the buyer's agent was based solely on what was listed in the MLS. And I was totally confused because there was not actually any percentage anywhere in the legal contracts except for between me and my buyers. So is that correct? You always need to look at the MLS to see what that percentage is?
So by participating in the MLS, you're agreeing to cooperate with other agents. That commission that is going to be paid on that listing is in that cooperation is listed in the multiple listing service, and that's where you get it from. If it is not listed in the MLS, you need to find documentation somewhere of what they're agreeing to cooperate with. In fact, there is a document in the CTM, in the contracts, that is a document that can spell out what that agreement commission would be. I forget what it's called. It's been a long time since I used it, but there's a document there. So if it's a for sale by owner, for instance, you want to make sure you're being paid a commission. You don't want to go just based on their word, like, oh, sure, I'll pay a buyer's agent. No, you want to make sure that you're going to get paid that commission. And so therefore, there's a document in there that you can have them filled out and signed between you and the seller saying that the seller agrees to pay that. You can also put it into the actual contract with the seller if it is documented in the, if you have checked buyer is obligated, you can put that into the contract between buyer and seller, because again, buyer is now obligated. They owe you 2.8%. Buyer doesn't want to pay that, so the buyer wants the seller to pay it for them, because that's what those sellers do, right? That's standard. So does that all make sense?
It does. It was my very first, it was my very first deal. So I didn't catch it until about a few days before closing that they actually had in the MLS 2.5%. And at that point, I didn't want to jeopardize my relationship with these buyers. So I explained the discrepancy and just that I am absolutely not asking you for it. And then what you said resonates because I said, if you could just please give me a referral in the future, that would be the biggest compliment. And it ended up going really well, but it just was interesting that I was not aware of that I needed to be looking at the MLS for that percentage.
Yeah, it's a good lesson to learn, right? I mean,
Can you negotiate a percentage of, once you check that box with the seller? Or is that?
Yeah, I mean, up to that, what's in your buyer agency agreement.
Right.
Yeah.
But if it's like, if your buyer agency agreement is 2.8%, it's 2.5 on the MLS, then you can negotiate for that.
For the 2.8
with the seller.
As long as it's checked.
As long as that, because you're negotiating on the buyer's behalf.
Yep, exactly. I would be very upfront about it. I'm often say, hey, look, it's fair that I get paid my full commission, right? Like, this is what we do. I'm doing to put food on my table, pay my bills, feed my family, those kind of things. So it's fair that I should be able to get paid. Now, sometimes sellers are offering up a lower commission because they feel like they can, because it's a seller's market. If I find you a great deal, would that be fair if I get asked for my full commission? Well, I've never had one that says no.
But on the other side, I mean, as a seller's agent, can you not say, okay, I'm doing,
Sure, I mean, it's all part of the negotiations.
Right.
Yeah, it's another term in the contract that you're negotiating. Give me just 1 second, I apologize. My apologies. Oops. Sorry. Yeah, these are great questions, and that's exactly it. So now if you're the only offer, then I would definitely, I'm always asking for my full commission to be paid. Always. If there's multiple offers, that might change. If there's multiple offers, then I almost never do actually ask for my full commission to be paid. I will take that hit on the commission, and but I'll make sure my buyer is aware, not in a guilt way, but just being like, hey, look, they're not offering the full commission, but I'll tell you what, I don't want to jeopardize us getting this by nickel and diming over a little bit of commission dollars. Now, and so I'm not going to ask for the seller to pay for that. And honestly, I'm not going to chase after you for it, even though, like I said, that's the way the contract is written. So like I said, when we wrote our buyer agency agreement, I'd much rather, I'll get so much more from it when, if we were to, if you were just to send me a referral or something, connect me, introduce me to someone let's talk about buying or selling. I'm sure you're going to run into many as we go through this process. If you do that, then that's a win-win, right? Like, oh yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
How often do you see that? I mean, how often do you see you having to negotiate, you have to be in that situation?
2.5 is a really common commission that's offered, and currently my buyer agency agreements are offered 2.8. That's not to set a standard, that's just what we do. I'm not telling you what commissions to charge. This is being recorded.
Right.
I'm just saying that's what I tend to.
I like that strategy.
Yeah.
Working it into.
I do, if we're the only offer, I will. Sometimes I'll even do it in a competitive, not very often. I mean, because that means we have to be that much more competitive. Sometimes it gets a little confusing in there. I want to keep it as clear as possible. And again, we're talking about, in those cases, we're talking about 0.3% of the commission. So 0.3%. So if we're talking about a $500,000 property, 0.3% is $1,500. Compared to, so it's like, I'm making 12, 13,000, and instead of 14, or instead of 15,000, I'm making 13.5. I'm doing my math right. Yeah. So it's 13.5 fine versus 15. I mean, it's your only deal. I get it. At the same time, is that going to be the end of the world? No. Do I think I'll probably go further by getting extra referrals and winning them on my side? Do I think maybe that relationship will be stronger? Do I think, like, if you think about every referral is worth about 15,000 in this market, right? Like, yeah. So I think that is almost worth more to me than that $1,500.
And then it also like varies, right? Depending on how good the buyer was. So if they
Right.
hell and really,
I hate them. If I'm like, I can't wait for
right?
this transaction to be over, and I don't want them to refer anyone to me because people refer people like them. And if this is the type of personality I just don't like working with, I just happen to catch them in my net somehow. Yeah, I might do that.
Do you ever have them with their, buyers, you ever have them with their PITI? You kind of like help them like, hey, we made this much payments, on your interest, you're ahead of the game.
Oh, yeah.
Faster.
Oh yeah, I'm always giving advice like that. I mean, I'm like, if I can, if they have room, if there's a situation that I can help them understand, like, hey, if you actually pay, you're paid bi-weekly, right? So did you know if you actually take and pay half your mortgage bi-weekly or out of every paycheck and pay that in, you can actually, you're putting in 52 payments in a year. I'm sorry, not 52, 26 payments in a year instead of 12. Well, there's an extra payment in there. You're paying an extra month, right? And so 26 half payments versus 12 full payments, you're paying an extra month. That 1 month actually knocks something like, I don't remember the number. It's either 8 or 12 years off your mortgage. It knocks a lot. I think it's 8, that extra month.
We're like 7.
Is it 7?
Because home buyers tell you.
Okay, cool. It was somewhere around there. I knew it was something like that. But it knocks a lot, right? And it pays down. That all goes to the principal. Now, sometimes you have to have to work with your bank to make sure it's getting applied just to principal and not necessarily future payments and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, that's a cool trick for bi-weekly W-2 kind of person. It's just like,
Isn't there also something like, if you can get your hands on an average fee schedule,
yeah,
that's pay like a month ahead, then you're always like avoiding paying interest, and somehow you're always paying principal, you save yourself a lot of money.
yeah, you can't completely get away from paying interest. You're going to be paying interest, but you knock off the interest that you'd be paying for that month each. Like you knock down that interest a significant amount, so you're paying down principal faster. Is exactly what you're doing. So by paying it like essentially a month in advance, the interest on that payment amount gets paid first, or brings out the principal. So then the interest is on a smaller amount every time. And so I don't remember exactly how much it takes out. It's not like you're getting rid of all your interest. But
Well, I got my question wrong on that text anyway. So.
Yeah. The other thing that you can share your KW app. There's some integrations in there. It's a cool app. Play with it. I like a lot of tools out of it. It's branded to you. You can communicate through it, and it can work within your command structure. To be honest, I'm not 100% as familiar with the KW app. I do lean a lot on our matrix and the integration in there because it just makes life for my admin a lot easier. And it did for me. Like, I'm just like, can you just put parts, whatever you're using for your main one, can you like heart everything? And then I just get the list of parts and I know what the set of showings on, instead of mistakes on MLS numbers and addresses and stuff like that. It's just so much easier. And you can just select them now and then go to showing time, and it takes it all to your showing card, and then you can map it. Like the integration is so much simpler in life. So that's tends to be where the mobile app is pretty cool, but it just can't do that. They can do collections and save homes and create these different collections in that, so you get some buyer insight when they use that app. So there are some cool parts to it. You can do a buyer guide. So like here's the next step, here's the next step, here's the next step, and that's built into their app as well. So they can be like, oh, this is where we are. Oh, this is the next step. This is where we are. That's probably the coolest part of the integration on the app, is that I'm working on getting more integrated into my business, but they can literally be going through here as we check off things. It's a checking guide for them. Oh, my next step is to do this. Oh, we're under contract. So the next thing is going to be to submit all paperwork needed to the lender and schedule the inspection. And it's just like this nice little step by step. So it's pretty cool. Ahas, what have you learned?
I have a quick question for you. Where do you learn the market updates? Like when you meet with your buyers and you share the statistics from a certain neighborhood and you tell them about appreciation.
Yeah. Megan Allen. Do you know who she is?
Yeah, I mean, I see her. I mean, yeah.
That's where 90% of so her reports, so she has some zip code reports, things like that I use a lot from. I also have learned just from exploring how to find have you looked at InfoSparks?
Mm-hmm.
So that's another tool that I'll use to grab certain stats and information about neighborhoods, areas, to present myself as the expert. 90% of what I know off the top of my head without doing pre-research comes from listening to and paying attention to Megan Aller's presentations. And then I'll use her zip code. I've used her zip code maps for a lot of things. There's one I've used it to contest appraisers. Because I'll be like, well, this zip code had appraised in the last 12 months this much. And you're using comps from 6 months ago. So it appraised 20%. So at least 10%, we should add 10% to that for the fact that the market's gone up. And sometimes they won't give me the full 10, but they give me 8, and that was enough to make us hit our appraisal. So there's huge valuable resource. You can also, DMARC puts out some great reports you can read if that's your style. Matrix does put out their own like monthly thing that RE Colorado, and that that's your style. But that's what I use for general market info specific to Denver, Colorado, and like Denver Metro. And then I'll dig in with those like zip code maps or area maps and different things, and and price points. And I'll dig in based on what I need to know. I'll refresh on it based on what I need to know for a buyer or seller consultation to get that data and that information. Yeah. I believe in being a student of the game. So I'm constantly doing trainings. I'm constantly learning to get more updates and hopefully learn bigger and better ways to present the information to my clients as well. So one of the other things that I did as a tool, is started writing like monthly newsletter stuff on the market. But what that did more for me was it was less for my clients and more for me. Because by having to write it out and go through that pain in the butt process, I don't love sitting down and writing. It forced me to really think deeply about what I'm saying and how I'm saying it, what makes sense and what doesn't make sense, and how to make it great, and how to say it to people, understand it. Any other ahas? You guys want me to show you my thing on how I present what's happening in the Denver market? What's the biggest fear that most, I'm hoping these guys, can you turn that so this is the main thing? Thank you. I'm hoping that this will be dark enough. What's the biggest fear most buyers have right now? Overpaying. Yeah. And with overpaying comes the idea that what are buyers afraid of happening in the near future? Market crash, right? So education is, there's two things that drive this. Data, information, numbers make people think, emotions make people act, right? So you have to give them the data, the information to think about, and then you have to put in the emotions that cause them to act and move forward. So the first step is providing data. So when I talk about the market, the first thing I like to talk about when it comes to the Denver market is just looking at the history and what's happened. There's no one in the world that can predict exactly what's going to happen in the next 6 months to, or 12 years or any of that. I've yet to find someone with a working crystal ball. And so, but the best we can do is we can look at the history and look at all the leading indicators and give us a good idea of what we think should probably happen in the near future. But if World War III broke out tomorrow, we might actually see a market crash. So no one can 100% with 100% confidence say there is no way the market's going to crash. Just can't do it, right? All right. So now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the market. So whenever I talk about the Denver market, this is what I draw. It actually looks a lot like a sine or cosine curve, if you remember back from like math in high school or something along those lines. No one really loves to think about that, so let's not. But this is this right here is price. This right here is time. My math teacher would be happy for me because I label my axis. And so this typically what happens in the Denver market is you'll talk about you hear people talk about like it's a good market or a bad market, right? There is no actually such thing as a good or a bad market. It depends on who you are. Is it good for a buyer or good for a seller, right? Right now, people are like, oh, it's a great market. Well, not if you're a buyer. Man, it's a tough market, right? But what they're talking about is peak to peak or valley to valley. So from peak to peak, top of like the price of the market, on average, it takes about 7 years to go through a cycle. Now, this is tracing back to about the end of World War II, when homeownership became the big American dream. So going back all the way back to the 1940s, when homeownership became the American dream, they started tracking this. They noticed a trend of about, on average, every 7 years, we'd have a cycle. In that cycle, we would spend about 4 years in the seller's market, about 3 years in a buyer's market. So What we would generally see is for 3 years, we sit in some sort of this buyer's market, and for every 4 years, we get into the seller's market. And it would just go through this kind of repeating cycle. And what they've noticed was every 3 cycles, there was a bigger adjustment, bigger correction. So about every 21 years, 3 cycles, we would see a big adjustment. Now, we just went through one of those, didn't we? A lot of people call it the Great Recession or things like that, where we actually saw a bigger adjustment in our market. And so in that time, instead of our market staying relatively flat, which is what it typically does during the buyer cycle, our market actually kind of dipped down a little bit, and then we've been kind of working our way out of it ever since. And so this happened probably around, let's see the bottom hit. This was like 2013. This part started about 2010-ish, 2009. There's not that many zeros. 2010-ish, 2009, we saw this dip go down. We've been working out of it. Last time we saw a buyer's market in this market was 2013. So for the last 8 years now, I guess, we've been working our way out of this. Now, what's interesting, if you look at the numbers, and this is kind of interesting because you start saying, okay, well, it's been 8 years. What are we due for a buyer's market? If you actually look at 2018, 19, and beginning of 20, right around there, there's actually this tiny little, it's just less steep. So we were kind of going up like this, and it kind of went like that, and then it kind of went up again. It's just less steep. It's not going up as fast. We only saw about 6 or 7% appreciation in, what was that, 19, I think it was. Well, that's really good appreciation on statistical average, but compared to 20%, that's nothing, right? Okay, so that's something to keep in mind when you're thinking about, okay, are we in a buyer's market, seller's market? That might have been our 3 years of buyer's market. Oh, so if you're looking at it that way, then if that ended in like 20, that means we've got another 4 years from when it took off after they released us, opened the floodgates in 2020 after they had the shutdown and they released us and they just took off like bananas, right? So middle of 2020, okay, so 2020 and 2021, we still have 2022 and 2023 at least, maybe, right? These are averages, so we can't.
The market can't continue to go up 23% every year.
No, I don't think we'll see 20% this next year. But do I think that we'll see strong percent appreciation? Absolutely. Do I think it's going to be over 10? That would be my bet. If I were putting money, I'd be putting in 13, 15% where I put my money on. But I could be wrong. The one thing I don't know is interest rates, but we'll talk about that in a second. So this is what's been happening historically. Now there's 2 types of markets across the country. So you might be thinking like, is this really how this works? And there's 2 types of markets. There's volatile and there's stable, right? So a volatile market looks more like this. This still has an average appreciation, nice average line of appreciation, kind of like this does, right? It still has that same kind of average line of appreciation, but it's more volatile. So you go highs and lows and highs and lows. What's a market that might be like that? Would you guess? Not a stock market, but like a housing market. What areas of the country maybe?
Going up and down, up and down.
Up and down, up and down. Volatile.
I feel like it's markets that don't have.
What markets are the most volatile do you think are in the country? Where?
California.
Yeah, like parts of like California, big parts of California, Florida is fairly volatile.
Wyoming right now.
Yeah, Wyoming right now. There's some areas that where you're seeing these big rises and then you see these bigger falls and big rises, big falls, and on average they're still appreciating. But you have to be a lot more careful in these markets to time the market a little bit, because if you're only going to live there 3 years and you buy here and 3 years later it's down there, that's a problem, right? The good news about Denver is, historically speaking, I don't know what's 100% what's going to happen in the future, but historically speaking, we stay flat during our buyers markets. We might go down a hair. Did you know during the Great Recession, there are neighborhoods that still appreciated the entire time?
Isn't it like down south, like Highland Ranch?
No, Highlands Ranch was terrible. It died and it sunk a lot. So Highlands neighborhood in Denver appreciated the entire time we were in the Great Recession.
Huh.
Do you think it has a lot to do with the possibility for expansion?
That does have a lot to do with it. So if you look at areas of appreciation maps, Megan Aller has this amazing set of maps, PDF, that she actually layered everything on top of each other. So as you flip through the pages, everything's perfectly aligned and they're color coded of the map of the Denver metro area. And it goes all the way back to at least 2013. It might go to 2008, I think. And you can flip through it and you can see where the appreciation is happening, color coded across it. And you can see how the different areas move and migrate and where appreciated more and less and all this kind of stuff as you flip through the years. It's kind of a cool thing to look at. But at least it is for me because I love studying the market. But here's what it is, to speak to your point. When you're in the outer rim of a metro area, what are they doing out there? Expanding. They're building. So if you're thinking about the market, what does the market consist of? How do we determine price?
Supply and demand.
100%. Supply versus demand equals price, right? What's our supply? Listings versus, or sellers versus buyers equals price, right? So if you're in an area where they're building, what are they doing? They're adding more supply, they're adding more listings. So if they're adding more listings, then that is putting an upward pressure on supply, which puts a downward pressure on price, right? So to speak to your point, and to speak to why Highlands Ranch didn't do so as great during this period from about 2010 to 2013 is because that was a big piece of it. They had the builders, there was a lot of new build stuff that they had to get rid of. And builders got stuck with a bunch of things, which is actually why they didn't pick up building again very quickly.
And like something happened like that. What was that next town that's below Highland Ranch?
Oh, yeah.
That happened where they built and
I forget the name of the town, but I know what you're
people
talking
went
about.
kind of like, oh.
Yeah, and they've restarted building in there a lot now, again. Yeah, that's south of Highlands Ranch, yeah. So now Highlands, the neighborhood, never lost, I don't think they had, I can't speak 100% certainty with per month, but I know per year they never lost. Might have been a month or two where they might have seen some flat or negative, but there was a lot of neighborhoods that actually saw this. So what we're seeing, so some of it depends on where you're at. And so real estate is very market specific, right? And across Denver, we're generally, relatively speaking, we're fairly flat during a buyer's market. So now let's say I'm wrong. This could happen. Let's say we're right here. We're at the peak coming out of it, and we are at the top. Now, the biggest thing that determines value is supply versus demand. What are the things that are right now? And this is where knowing your market statistics really helps, right? So right now we're in what's called a seller's market, right? Do you know what the difference between a buyer's market and a seller's market is?
The number of houses.
There are more buyers than sellers right now.
Yeah. You're right. And more simply put, there's a lot more buyers out there demand than there are sellers for listings to sell, right? So to my client, this is kind of how I'm talking to them. I'm saying, so right now, actually, so what they say in real estate, they say have a balanced market between buyers and sellers, and this would have a flat idea of price, where prices aren't going upward or downwards. We need 6 months supply.
Didn't Megan say something about we need like 37,000 listings?
Yeah, we're up to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're at 3K.
We need like 30,000.
Yeah, we're like less than 10%.
So by being able to talk to them and say, look, we need 6 months supply of homes to be into, just to get to flat. Right now, we have 0.3. 0.3 months supply of homes. We need 6. That is, and I'll emphasize on this, that's what we have right now. So in order for us to get to that flat part, we need to add like 30,000, 10 times what we have homes to our market. Now, so let me ask you this. Do you see like 30,000 people suddenly throwing their homes up for sale instantaneously? No. So there's one of two options here to get to this balanced spot. We either need our buyer demand to drop dramatically or our supply to explode. Where are the new homes going to come from, right? We only have so many homes that are built. So either people need that mass exodus Denver.
Well, yeah, because, well, you can sell it here in Denver and get your equity in your home, you know, but
We
where
could.
the hell are you gonna go?
Where are you going to go, right? Are you going to move to Nebraska?
It seems like a lot of people are like.
Trust me, you don't want to move to Nebraska. I'm from there.
I'll sell you.
No, where are you going to go, right? So, I mean, do you see more people coming to Denver or leaving Denver from what you can tell? Yeah, most people are coming. Now, you know, depending on who you are and who you're around, I know a lot of people are like, oh yeah, a lot of my friends are leaving because they can't afford it here. That's true, but the net right now is there's more people coming to Denver than leaving Denver. So, because it's an attractive place to come, and where are they coming from? Well, they're probably coming from places like California where home values are like $1 million, and they're like, whoa, your average home price is only $500,000. I'll buy two, cash. Right? So this is where they're coming from. They're coming from more expensive places and they can afford it here. So yeah, you say homes aren't very affordable here. Well, they're not affordable, unfortunately, to you. Well, and the question is, are they really not affordable? Because let's talk about what's affordable, right? So here's the thing. So we're looking at this and we're saying, okay, so do we think so knowing that we need 30,000 more houses than we have, and we only have about 3,000. It takes about a week to get there, 2 weeks to get through our entire inventory. 0.3 months, and we need 6 months supply. Do you think we're closer to here, or do you think we're closer to here? Well, we're probably here, but even if we are wrong here, what's the one thing that we're going to watch for that could drive down demand? The thing that could drive down demand is going to be interest rates, because that highly affects historical affordability. Now, here's a couple of things that's happening right now. Interest rates are still pretty darn low. And they're gonna peak up a little bit, but I don't think they're gonna explode up, right? There's just no signs. And all the economists that I'm talking to says, yes, interest rates are gonna go up, but they're not gonna explode. And if they don't explode, and even every time they go up, here's what happens. Every time they go up just a little bit, there's this teeny little blip or pause in the market where buyer demand goes down, and then it gets comfortable with new interest rate, and then it goes back up. And then interest rates go up just a teeny bit again, and then the buyers back off, and a couple people drop out that can no longer afford it. They were at the cusp anyways, and then people get comfortable with it again, and it goes back up. Historically speaking, 6% interest has been actually pretty good. What are we at now? We're at 3. We're at half of what, historically speaking, I think someday, well, I used to think we'd get back to 6. I don't know if that's going to happen. We're definitely going to get back to 4. Okay, so that's going to put downward pressure on price, right? And less demand is going to put a downward pressure on price. But the more people move here, that is more demand. And since we're seeing net more people moving here, that's creating more demand. Now, new builds, they're upping that supply. But there's not much else that's really contributing to our supply. One of the graphs I really like that shows the amount of new builds, it shows the rate that new builds were being built in 2013, where they dropped off to. And then we're like here at the rate of new builds being built. Here's the problem. This is the rate that they needed to continue to build at to keep up with the current supply that we need. That missing section are all the homes. That's 30,000 homes that we're missing. That's where they are. If people are like, well, why don't we have the right supply? It's because the builders in 2013, when they were stuck with all these houses, they got scared. They stopped building because they had to sell off what they had. A lot of builders went out of business, and then they've been slow, cautious to ramp that back up. Now they're trying right now to ramp up but the problem is they're having a hard time finding good contractors. They're having a hard time finding supplies. There's supply chain issues. They're trying to ramp up faster, but man, they need to be like up here in order to catch us up. So just one or two things have to happen, right? Supply needs to go up or demand needs to go down to get us back to where we are. So I'm trying to find where those two things are. I mean, this is basic laws of economics that has to happen. So I'm trying to figure out where they're coming from. What do you think the next thing a buyer might suggest of where that could come from? Where that demand, or I'm sorry, where that supply might come from, where those extra houses could come from. Foreclosures, right?
So the one thing that I usually, and I'm going to this much detail, which is great, which I will be using going forward. But the way that I present is like, are you really scared of another crash? As we saw back in 2008, you have to realize that some of those financial conditions that were available to essentially generate that big pitfall is no longer.
They're no longer there, right? So when it comes to foreclosures, they're like, oh, what about all those forbearances? Aren't those going to become foreclosures? So those people have been coming off forbearance from the COVID stuff. They've been coming off that forbearance for the last year, right? We're actually to the point where 97% of those people are now off of that forbearance. Guess how many foreclosures we had last month? We had like 6.
But then
We had one short sale.
when they, Conrad, when they
All
talk
of them in
about,
Metro.
when they talk about recessions, oh, you said it there, I'm sorry, like it usually lasts like 7 years, right?
So yeah, so the cycle usually lasts 7 years. The buyer's market usually takes about 3 years, which is almost exactly what happened right here. Because the last time we were in a buyer's market was 2013, and this whole started around 2009, 2010. Denver was hit a little bit later than a lot of the rest of the country, but then it was hit harder and started leading the foreclosure period for a while, and then we kind of stopped being number one in that area, which is good. It's not a number one you want to be. Number one in foreclosures. So that's what we saw, and we've been kind of coming out of it. And like I said, there was this little blip right here, and I think historically we're going to look at that blip, and that's going to be like that. It zoomed out, it's going to look like a 14-year climb almost, or not close to that. But really, there's going to be, if you zoom in, I think that you're going to see that little 3-year blip where it just isn't quite as steep. And I think that's going to be our buyer's opportunity, our buyer's market that we missed. Now, you only know 100% until we passed it, right? That's the problem with all this stuff. So all we can do is predict. And the only thing I'm watching, the number one thing I'm watching is interest rates. That's the biggest thing that's going to have that downward pressure on demand. It's actually the biggest reason why move up should be doing it now, because unless their income is going to significantly increase over the coming years, that change in interest rate is going to have a bigger effect on their ability to buy their dream house than anything. Because one of the things they say is they sit there thinking is like, well, if my house is appreciating and the rest of the market's appreciating, then everything's kind of appreciating somewhat on average together. Therefore, whether I buy and sell now or do that 2 years from now, it really doesn't matter. Yes and no, because it's your interest rate. The interest rate's going to be different 2 years ago or a year from now than it is now. So if they're thinking about buying anytime in the next couple of years, I'm telling like moving up, if they can afford it today, do it today because of the interest rate. Because I guarantee, I can't guarantee it, but I would bet the pony on the fact that interest rates are going to be around 4% at least within 2 years.
I mean, realistically, the only reason why they came down is because of the lack of economic stimulus. So that was essentially the reason why it kind of,
Yeah, do you guys, okay, so Fed interest rate, like the Fed rate is not what controls mortgages. This is one thing that took me a minute to learn. The Fed rate is a short-term interest rate that's what Fed, where banks borrow from the Fed for overnight type of interest rate. That's been at like basically zero. It's never going to go negative. At least what can, but we won't do it in this country. I don't think anytime soon. Not going to go negative, but staying zero. But that's not directly influencing the interest of the mortgage interest rate. What the Fed is doing to affect the mortgage interest rate is that at the rate of billions of dollars, they've been purchasing every month billions of dollars of bonds. Those bonds are what have the influence over the interest rate. And so, because what they're doing is they're keeping those bond prices high by buying it up. Again, it's a supply and demand thing, right? So they're buying them up at $1 billion a month rate. They're keeping those bond prices high, which is what keeps those interest rates low. And so what the Fed is talking about doing, and I think it's next week they meet, or this week, soon they're meeting. There you go, November 2nd, thank you. They're meeting again. And when they're meeting, the thought is that they're going to announce that their plan is over the next 6 months, They're gonna start reducing or doing what they called quantitative easing the last time. All that means is that they're gonna start reducing how much they're buying of those bonds till they get down to zero in about 6 months. So instead of spending $1 billion, they're gonna be spending nothing on buying those bonds. Then the next step is they're gonna start selling the bonds that they have because they don't want them anymore. But they don't want to flood the market or else that would skyrocket interest rates. And so they're just gonna do that slowly. But all of this is gonna have an upward pressure on interest rates for those long-term loans like mortgages, cars will become more expensive to buy, things like that. Well, here's the other interesting thing about all this. Over 90% of people in Denver Metro have at least 10% equity in their home. So what does that mean? Why is that important? Well, when you talk about the idea of foreclosures because of job losses and things like that, the unfortunate part about it, but good for real estate, is the people who got impacted the most from COVID and all that kind of stuff were people who didn't own homes. They were your service industry. They were all those kind of people who are working and didn't even make the income to afford a home. And the people who have homes, they have enough equity that if they need to sell because something happened in their world because of COVID or anything else, they have enough money that they can sell it and walk away with money. In fact, most people have so much equity in there that they could sell it, walk away with enough money to rent for years to come before they have to go back to it. So why would they be foreclosed on? Why would there ever be a short sale? The only people that should ever be going through a short sale is someone who bought it last month, lost their job this month, can't make a mortgage payment, and they just bought it, and they closed already. They can't get back, and they have to get rid of it because now they're in trouble. Or if they got a job transfer or something like that. That's the reason there was only one short sale last month. Because that's not likely to happen. So the people who are waiting for those opportunities, what they're doing is they're waiting for the opportunity, but the opportunity is already here. In fact, right now, I think we have what I would call a short window of opportunity for buyers to be purchasing. If you want to know when the best time to buy is, it is absolutely right now, before January. Yeah.
Well, first, I love all the information. And if you ever offer a monthly class on this, I would sign up. Because I don't understand it when I have to read it in your application, the way you apply it in classroom. Second, when you're talking to a buyer, how do you shrink that down to like 2 sentences?
That's probably my biggest challenge because I have a hard time shrinking it down. I watch the buyer, I find out how engaged they are. And what I tend to do is I ask, like, is this helpful? Does this make sense? Is this something that, and I'm asking that question because I'm like, and so then I'm like, so do you see why what I'm saying here? Do you get that? Do you see why I think like right now is the best time to buy? Because even if, how long are you going to stay there, Mr. Buyer? Probably about 5 years or so. You know, that's what I'd like to be there for. Sweet. So even if you bought it here, and this takes 3 years, then 5 years should be right around here. So you'll still get this equity, right? Now, ideally, we're buying it here, you're getting this equity. But either way, the reason that they say that this is the reason that they say if you're not going to own, if you can't see yourself owning the property for at least 5 years, then it's probably not a good idea. I didn't say you had to live there. I just said own it. What does that mean? You could rent it if you need to. If you have to. Now here's the cool thing though. I sold a guy a property last year. He sold it about 10 months later. He made $40,000 after paying me. Now I can't guarantee results. I can't guarantee that, but that's what's happening right now. So I'm not really worried. In fact, right now, as long as you see yourself being there for like 5 years, I think you're in a pretty safe spot. The worst case scenario, if it's 3 years, you bought here, you're selling like right there. And you're kind of breaking even, maybe getting a little bit, because we're going to see some appreciation there. So,
what was the name of that report that you said to me, Melissa?
Oh, Megan Allard's reports. Yeah, get on Allard. She's a title rep with First American. Get on all of that.
Is she the one that comes here for our like monthly meeting?
Yeah, she goes way deeper in her bi-weekly, semi-monthly something. They used to do it every single week, and they went to every other week, and now they're kind of semi-sporadic. but she'll do that. I think she'll go back to probably doing it monthly is probably what she'll do, but she goes way deeper in that. And then, yeah, the lender, Nicole Ruth, thank you. She's super smart. She studies the economy side of things that affects it all and really kind of helps you get a really good grasp on that. But this is the stuff that you need to be studying to be the market expert. I mean, this is what's driving the market. And so I'm always looking at what are this right here, the basic formula, learned it in high school, whatever, economics or whatever. Supply and demand. What's going to drive demand? What's going to drive supply? What's going up and what's going down? We're getting a little bit more higher wages. Wage growth is starting to go up again in Denver Metro. Sweet, that's going to increase our demand, not decrease it, right? So that's going to again drive prices up. Sellers are, the more sellers we see on the market, that's going to drive prices down. If demand goes down, I mean, the bigger one really ends up, I think, being demand. There's not a whole lot more we can do to incentivize sellers to sell at this point, other than just job changes, needs a different house. I have a client that they had twins. They're like, we need something bigger. But yeah, we want to be urban though. We don't want to spend more than we pay for our house. Good luck. Call me when you find it. Oh wait, that's my job. I hope you guys found that helpful. I hope you found that interesting. I love this stuff. I'm trying to figure out how to convert this conversation into a PowerPoint type of thing where they just draws it for me and it's the same every time.
There's one app. I'll send it to you via Facebook, but
yeah,
basically it's a subscription. And like big chains like McDonald's, whatever, they use it for the marketing presentations.
Interesting. I'll have to look
So
at
I'll
that.
send you that.
Yeah.
I can't recall the name, but
Yeah, because I need to, because I think that would be the thing personally that could help me shorten it, is if I had it all kind of built out and then I just kind of actually wrote my script, because I've just presented it so many times that this is just what I can talk about. And I've revised it over the years, but I mean, this is the driver of the market. And then if you just know a few stats of how many months of supply do we have, how many more properties do we need to add to the market in order to get to a balanced market? And if that's what it's going to take, do you think we're going to see a crash anytime soon? If you can just get them to that level, then they're going to no longer be fearful of the Denver market. Any other questions from the Zoom world? Looks like a couple of you stuck with me all the way through. If not, I'm going to shut it down. What's in the chat? That was great. Go ahead. Perfect. All right. Thanks, guys. Great seeing you.
Okay, I'm not,